Hey guys, welcome to For the Love of the Game, the show where we talk about video games and stuff. Because quite frankly, that's what you came to hear. Um, I am Wyatt, and with me is co-hosting Dylan.
Hey, what's up?
I actually almost called you Danny. um,
Appropriate.
and you just heard a lovely intro of Winter of Whistlers by Carbohydro M. Very lovely artist who makes good music. So, the first episode. We finally got this going.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Only took forever, but we got it. So cool. Basically what we're just gonna do is kinda run through a couple of topics. Maybe we have some news segments to run through and see how things go. And we'll hopefully get some feedback from some people, see how they like it. But I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, hopefully y'all guys like it, but let us know if you don't.
Yeah. anything we could do. All right, well, let's just get started. Let's just jump into a topic. So for this show, we were actually going to be talking about video game burnout. And if that's not familiar to anyone, really just what that means is if you play a lot of games, and you might experience this without actually ever even really knowing it, or maybe knowing the term for it, but essentially just what it is when you've played games a lot, as a lot of people do, as I do, and I believe you do.
I know I do.
Yeah. Sometimes, eventually, you can sort of burn out on it, like you could with anything, like you, even with school or work. Sometimes, it's just you're doing it too much, and you're like, shit, I need a vacation, I need a break. And that happens in video games. Not everyone's the same. Some people can go longer. I know I've gone very long periods of time. Like, it takes me quite a while, I think, before I burn out. My tolerance might be a little less now that I'm older. Obviously,
Oh, definitely.
yeah, like
Same for me.
when you're a kid, it I don't know, man. I could fucking play video games.
I
I think I could spend more time playing video games than not playing video games. Like, I could do a good 20 hours a day, sleep 4 hours, and play more, like 20 hours a day. I could do that for years.
yeah, I
Crazy.
remember my mom used to, just because I'd sit there on TV so long, like my kidneys are hurt, and this was like at like 11 years old or 12 years old. So yeah, I should have.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have gone out more, but hey, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Still like video games.
Yeah. But I don't know if you have any specific things, but I wanted to actually talk about an experience I had where, with Counter-Strike, like, as you probably remember, that I was like, we were all into Counter-Strike at some point, but then I was fairly in it more than I think everyone else, and for a longer period of time, like for a whole year after, like, our group fell apart. Yeah, I was still going.
Yeah. What rank did you get to?
Man, so there was a patch that happened like a year back that adjusted everyone's rank and actually brought me down and stuff, and that's honestly,
Oh,
yeah, like, if you talk to people, that's weird. There's this whole persona, like this whole kind of personality on Counter-Strike, that, like, when people ask you your rank, some people just go, well, pre-patch I was this, which is exactly what I'm gonna do, because I don't really play it as much anymore. So I'm only Gold Nova 2 now, which maybe is respectable, but, like, with my mindset of what I used to be, I used to be Supreme Master First Class, which is the second from Global Elite, which is the top rank. I was
wow.
yeah, I was pretty no life, like, and there was like a bunch of reasons why I ended up thinking, like, man, I need to take a step back from this. But at some point, it really got to the point where it just wasn't fun anymore, right? Like I was chasing the grind and I was chasing the rank. I wasn't like playing for fun. Like like even when I didn't have time, when I was doing construction and I had like I was working long days, coming home tired as crap, and all I wanted to do was sleep. It was weird. It's like an addiction, you know. Like I just had to play Counter Strike. I couldn't.
Oh yeah.
I could not play Counter Strike. So it was just. It was very weird. I would at least play one game a day for maybe a year and a half. Like I put so many hours in that game in such a short period of time, and yeah, I don't know. Like it's I still love that game and I love everything about it. I go back from time to time, and when I do, it's still like, yeah, this game is awesome. Like in my opinion, there's still not a more solid, like from a pure mechanical standpoint and like map design for like think like Dust 2 or Cache and stuff like that, or
Mm.
Mirage. Um, Cache could probably be argued that it has a lot of problems, but like Mirage and Dust 2, like I don't think there is any video game that is designed better, you know, except maybe the original Super Mario Brothers, where like from
Hmm.
a pure like just everything about like Counter Strike on Dust 2 just is the pinnacle of what you should try and strive for, and how a game should feel and how a game should like work mechanically. And obviously
Yes.
that comes with like it's a competitive shooter, so it it shouldn't necessarily be that other games feel like Counter Strike. Just the idea of like the quality put into every little
Yeah.
piece of it.
Just take some notes like from design. If
Yeah,
BF
exactly.
had map design like Counter Strike, and it wouldn't be exactly the same. BF a lot different of a game than Counter Strike, but just if the level attention to detail and forethought went into the same maps, or rather, map design of BF1 that went to Counter Strike, I think the game would benefit a lot. Because we all know that BF4, if you played it, it has a lot of hit and miss maps. You know, they're often hit or miss. Um, Most notably, I think is what is the one with the mountain? The the
Be
one where
Battlefield 1,
yes, the most
uh
recent. Uh,
the mountain, the
mm,
desert one? You mean the desert with the like
no, it's where you're fighting the Germans and you're fighting the
you're
Austrians.
the Austrians and the Italians?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Crap. I don't know.
Can't remember,
It's been a
but
while. Montegrappa?
yeah, Montegrappa. Yes,
Okay.
that map is a little frustrating, especially with the
Yeah.
addition of the behemoth. But you know, I think that certainly many games could benefit from just proper design. And
Yeah.
yeah, Counter Strike has that. It feels fair. That's the BS moments because it's very mechanically balanced, and like I said, the maps are there's very few times you can get mad at the game. It's more like just your your time with the game. Your experience with other people, which is one thing I had a problem with. And
Yeah.
yeah,
People are definitely the downfall of games like that.
yeah, and yeah, and maybe it's just not the game just isn't fun anymore. It's just that you don't get that, especially once you go up in rank. You just don't get that same yeah we're kicking ass feeling as much as you did whenever you first started, because obviously it gets more competitive the higher up you go. Um, and yeah, I think that's also a thing. It's just you get burnt out if these games they drip feed you, and if your feed gets cut off, you want it back, and then whenever you don't get it, you just I have better things to do,
Yeah.
and that's the thing with burnout is that I've certainly had that as well.
Yeah. Back to your point of like, I mean, with Battlefield, I think Battlefield could do to. I think maybe it's lost its touch a bit.
Oh yeah.
in several ways. But yeah, I remember with, well, I know with 4 they started trying to do competitive, and I know Battlefield 1 they're trying to do some kind of competitive Battlefield, and there's like a
Hmm.
different version coming out and stuff, and I don't know, it's very confusing. Well, we'll get into that some other time. I'm like, we'll talk about Battlefield another on another episode, but because there's a whole bunch we could go into.
Oh yeah. I could talk forever about BF3 and Bad Company too.
Yeah, but yeah, it really, it has a lot of those moments where like even Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty has some maps over its history that were just perfect for what they were. You know, like in many ways, like Nuketown was kind of like the Call of Duty map that was just
Yeah.
kind of, which is interesting because it's one of the smaller maps, but it's so well put together that you could really just, it just worked. It was just always fun. It never felt frustrating. Um,
And they're
but
still rehashing it.
yeah,
And they're still releasing it. Was the
Jesus,
advanced
yeah,
war?
new
Yeah.
version every game.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. I'm surprised they never did that with Rust. I felt like Rust was that map before Nuketown
Oh yeah,
from
Rust. I forgot about.
Modern Warfare 2.
Uh-huh.
Well, I guess they did with the
Those
airport.
things.
They remade airport once or
Did
twice.
they
Yeah, it
really?
it honestly feels just as great. Whichever one had like, I mean, I guess several of them now have like the body armor that makes you jump and fly and stuff. But I was playing one uh, about a year ago now on PS4 that was, yeah, they had a remake of Airport, and I was like, man, this map still phenomenal. But yeah, not to get too tangential, but yeah, I was with, so yeah, I was really big into Counter Strike, and yeah, I just had to fall off eventually, you know. And the weirdest thing is, I mean, maybe other things are like this. I haven't experienced this with much other than games because I haven't been as into anything as I was with video games. I mean, especially with Counter Strike, like just how much time I gave to that game and how much
Yeah.
attention. Like I was so into it. I knew all about the pro scene. Like I was just, there was nothing about it that I just didn't absorb, and it was crazy. Um, and it's really kind of frustrating. Like when I do go back, that I have in my head like how to play, and my muscle memory is just kind of gone now. Like I can still do okay, but there's like times with the op where like I used to wreck. I used to be an absolute beast. I just can't do it anymore, you know? I just
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. It's like that with BS3, me and the 40 BS3.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. But yeah. And I guess more recently, cuz that was, oh man, that was quite a while back now, cuz I started waning off when I moved up here, so almost 2 years ago was when I came off that burnout, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I did after that. I just didn't play much, I don't think. I think I just sort of gave up video games in general because I just couldn't do it. And yeah, and then I got back into them for a while, and more recently I've actually come off a burnout. Um just in the way that, like, we had talked about this before, but I wasn't able to find any single player games for a long time, for a really long time, that
Mm.
could really hold my attention at all. Like I have so many games in my Steam library, and every one of them I'm like, man, I just want to play that, right? And I have games on
Yeah.
PS4 that I'm like, man, I really want to play this game, and I start playing it, and I get like 2 hours in, and I don't ever touch it again. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah. For
just,
me, it's the same way. Just have something to play. Just
yeah.
don't.
And I think I think it's fair to say that I'm coming off of that now. Um, I'm I'm less, I don't know. I feel better about it, and I'm actually like I have a few games that are actually holding my attention a lot. Like I was telling you, well, recently I beat Horizon maybe a month ago or maybe more. Gosh, can't even remember. And I poured
Yeah.
like 90 hours into that game. Like love that game. It's phenomenal. And that's not to say the other games weren't. It's just for some reason I couldn't get into it. And like I even had Horizon. I played a little bit of it, and then that game came out in February, and I barely beat it like two a month or two ago. So it's
Yeah.
like it took me a while, right? Like I just had this stint where I couldn't do it, and we've been playing like several different multiplayer games quite regularly. So it's not like games in general was burned out for me, but I do feel like a lot of that time spent, at least this past year, when we were playing, like Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, or we played Battlefield, or what was the other one? Overwatch. Uh,
Yeah.
a
Played
lot of
that
it,
Wilson.
yeah, like there was want to it. Oh, Siege as well, I guess. There was want.
Siege, yeah.
Yeah, I can't
I
believe I
remember
skipped over the game we
we
like played
used to play
for.
that quite a bit,
Yeah,
and then my internet got crappy.
yeah,
Now we'll probably play it now.
yeah. We
Interested.
we've started touching it again, but
Uh,
we like it's not that I didn't want to play them. It's just that even when I did play them, I didn't get the joy, right? Like there was never
yeah.
that gripping, enticing feeling where as recently when I played through all of Horizon and beat it, I just like something clicked and I fell in love again, and I was like, man, cuz that game really, and maybe that's what I needed. Maybe I just needed a game that was like its mechanics are just so beautiful that I can't put it
Mhm.
down. Because that's really what it came to, is that game is just so fun to, I mean, like exploration
Yeah.
and and like the fighting is so good, like all the combat, all the different ways you can approach things, like I love it. It just when
You got
it's
me wanting to play it now.
oh
I want to
yeah.
play it. It's definitely interesting. I like the idea. It's the
Yeah, I have it on like
semi.
New Game Plus because like I platinumed it, and it's weird because I think the only other game I've ever platinumed was The Walking Dead, because it was like my
Uh,
first Vita game because I got the bundle.
yeah.
Plus, it was like amazing. I had to play that game like 2 times in a row because that's, oh my god, season one, it's just so phenomenal.
Mhm. You know that what you said there though is that it's not that you didn't enjoy them, just that you just couldn't bring yourself to play them. That brings up a good point because I was thinking about because the first multiplayer game I ever played, competitive multiplayer game I ever played, was World at War, and I told you that before.
Hmm.
But and I love that game. It was awesome. I still love that game. But I wouldn't say that the reason why I'm not playing it is because I never really got burnt out of World at War. Probably because that was a time when I could play a game for hundreds of hours. I probably have about 300 hours more or more into World at War. I'm pretty safe to say that I have over 300 hours in World at War. It's pretty good at it. It's pretty good at it. It's not that I stopped doing good. It's just that I didn't get burnt out. I wouldn't say. Yes, I stopped playing and I haven't played it in many years.
Goodness.
But yeah, it's just that I moved on. And I
Hmm.
think you have to define burnout because I wouldn't say that that was a case of like from that I went to BF3. That was probably the other multiplayer game that I put. I probably have about 600 hours in BF
Oh man,
combine all
for
my accounts.
sure.
Yeah, and
Goodness.
but I would say I got burnt out in the period of me playing BF3 because you play every 600 hours. You're gonna a couple weeks off here and
Yeah.
a week off. I probably a couple weeks is pushing. Probably went like maybe days that I'm playing, but because I was BF3 fiend, but yeah, but I wouldn't say that the reason why I left BF3 was burnout because then you have the natural progression. You have BF4. Uh, BF4, I didn't stop playing because it Burnout. I stopped playing it because it was a buggy mess upon release.
My
So,
goodness.
oh, you're right.
Yeah. Drinking some water went down the wrong hole. Please keep going.
Oh, yeah. But yeah. So that's not Burnout, I'd say. Especially
Mm-hmm.
World at War. I still love World. I'm hoping that World War II will be something like World at War. Losing hope. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. Um, as of September the 30th. But so we yeah, I think we need to be careful defining burnout because would you say I think you shared feelings that you burn out on Overwatch a little bit. It was mainly due to the toxicity of the community, and I
Yeah.
guess that would be burnout. It's just negative experience you don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it could be but just oh my goodness, my throat's all messed up now. It could be a bunch of different things, right? Like it's, I don't want to necessarily say. I gotta be careful here. It's not. It's not depression.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that in sort of the chronic mental, like the chronic condition of it,
Hmm.
but more of like you can be depressed without having depression. Like everyone can experience
Yeah,
dep-
diagnose.
everyone can experience depression. It doesn't mean it's chronic and that you have it for a long
Yeah.
time. And I think burnout is a level of that. There's just something that it's 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 inexplicable. Like you can't put it into words.
One thing I would say is that, and point with what I said previously, is that it's not that you don't want to play the game; it's
Hmm.
that you do want to play the game. You just don't enjoy it. That's what
Yeah,
burnout is. That's a good way of describing it.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
World at War, I just grew up from it to play it after I got BF3. It's natural progression. Overwatch, I mean, I'm sure you still want
Yeah, I want to go back. I mean, the difference there is that like with Counter Strike, right? At least
to.
for like, and I think maybe I'm not 100% sure whether I could classify my feelings with Overwatch as burnout, because maybe in general I was a bit burned out on video games and I needed to maybe take a step back. Or in the case of like Horizon, I needed something that could prove to like I could prove to myself, okay, this is still my thing. Because several times, and I think everyone goes through this, especially when they play video games as a kid and they grow up. They're like, shit, am I growing out of video games? And I don't think I ever will. But there's always those moments where it's like, am I done? But no,
Mhm.
I just need to take a step back and uh and sort of take a breath of fresh air, right? Like do some other stuff. Wait till there's a game that you're like, fuck, because there's a lot of, like we said, there's a lot of game. There was a lot of games in my Steam library, games coming out. I bought games because I was like, man, I want to play that. But then I eventually just didn't. And I think you really need to wait for the moment where you see something and you're like, should I have to play that? Like it's
Yeah,
not a
like your
want,
Red Dead
it's
2s.
yeah, it's a need where um like if Horizon hadn't been there, I think uh the game I'm playing currently, Dragon Quest 8, which it's an old game, PS2 game, but re-released on the 3DS. Like
Hmm.
when that came out, I was like, I have to play that. But I was already into Horizon at the time, so I was kind of getting that alleviated. But I believe that would have been the game that sort of would have been my medicine for it, because like, and we'll talk about this later in this episode, but it's just that is one of my all-time favorite games. Uh, Games like that are they're cocaine to me. Like I just there's something about it that I cannot not play it. And really that's it is and that's important because like I said, it's really hard to put into words and it can be really hard to realize. Much like depression, I've had moments of depression. I don't suffer from it chronically, but I've had moments of it where you don't even know you're in it until you're out of it. And I think burnout happens a lot like that too. Because with Counter
Yeah.
Strike, um, it was like I was grinding my face against sandpaper, but I thought it was like, a
You're in
beautiful
denial,
coconut oil
kind of.
bar or something. Like I thought,
Yeah,
like it's weird. Like you cannot see the shit right in front of you. You cannot see just it in your face, but it's there.
yeah,
And I think that's like a significant difference in why I'm not really sure. Like I think Overwatch for me was just I recognized that because I wasn't like I didn't play obsessively Overwatch mostly because I I rarely work a week less than 48 hours now.
mm.
but
Yeah,
uh but even when I was working, 40 a couple months ago, like I had those periods. Um it wasn't the game. Like it's such a beautiful game and I want it to get better, but that's it, right? Like I recognize there was a problem with the game, and it in this case it's this community it has.
yeah.
But and so I was able to say like, just to me, it's not worth it. I'm not even gonna get there. But
So
with
you made a conscious decision
yeah,
to
and
not.
with Counter Strike, it wasn't that like I saw something bad and or something bad was hurting me. It was just like it took over my life, and I let it take over my life, and I was happy to do that. But it just like yeah, again, it burned out. I just one day I was like, man, I don't know, I just can't do this right now. And when you
Mm.
take a step back, it was like you were saying, you come back to it. Like when I first did it, I took, and I tried that several times actually. Like I think I sort of recognized my Counter Strike burnout, but not to its full extent. To where I was like, I'm gonna take a, I'd take a break. And I always told myself I was gonna take a month off, and I took like
Mhm.
3 days,
I remember you
and
saying
then I'm
that.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a month off, and then you'd see me the next like next 3 days like playing it, and I'm like, yeah, well, I know I said I was gonna take a month off, but here I am.
Yeah.
Like, and it's really weird. I mean, it's an addiction, right? Like, it
Mhm.
just it sits there, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and eventually it kicks you in the face. Um, but yeah, it was really weird. Like, I had to take a whole bunch of breaks, and eventually I actually took a month break, and I came back, and I kind of sucked. Like, at least in my opinion, I was probably still way better than I am at this moment. But
Mhm.
for what I was, I wasn't doing it every day. I hadn't done it in a month. I lost a little something. I could still do it, but I lost a little something. And then like I was doing okay, and then I took another break, and then I came back and I was doing a little bit worse, and then I deranked. And I think that's where it started. Is like when you recognize like I could almost recognize the effects of it. Like I knew that if I wanted to rank up, I'd have to play it again the way I did before, and I didn't want to
You
do
just weren't
that.
willing to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then as like I deranked several times, and even when I got a steady like rank where I was still like this is still good, it was to the point where I had already started weaning off of it, and just I just was able to step back. And that's I guess that's like the most important part, but also probably the hardest part is one, you have to recognize it, right? Like first step to solving a
Mhm.
problem is recognizing it. So how do you see that? I honestly, if you're playing, if you spend even half your time playing a single game for more than a year, it's probably a problem. Uh, or at least if you're not capable of saying like I'm just not gonna do it, or even like having the thought, right? Like maybe it shouldn't even have to be a choice. If it's a choice you struggle with of like, do I not play Counter Strike today?
Yeah.
It should just be like, oh, like you should just wake up the next day and be like, oh, I didn't play Counter Strike that day. Like it should not even be something you have to think about. Oy. Um, because I think the moment that when you're so involved in something that you have to consider it in everything, right? and I imagine again like an addiction of any sort is like this. No matter what you do, you feel you have a way to think about it and involve it in that moment. Like there were times where I would be at like family events and stuff, and I would be like, I could be playing Counter Strike right now,
Yeah, I've
and
had
that's
that before.
like, yeah, that's like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of thought is that? Um,
I don't have any problem with it.
yeah. One second. But yeah, like that's really that's just it. Like it's kind of a problem to be in that state. Um, so if you're not in that state, you know, you probably don't have that problem. If you're not like off on a family or off on a vacation or hanging out with like family that you don't see all the time and thinking I could be spending my time doing this, playing this video game, like that's then you're probably fine.
Yeah, for me, it was just more like I go by the feeling. I don't consciously, I don't consciously say, I need to stop. Or I'm going through burnout. I just kind of, I guess you could say, I just stop.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing to look retrospectively on to just sort of recognize it, I guess. But yeah, that's really like that's the real important part is just being able to like the moment you can catch it and the moment you can say like, okay, I need to like cut myself off because you'll have withdrawals, but you'll give yourself a break, come back, give it a little bit, take a break, come back, give it a little bit, and eventually you'll be able to I mean, obviously you could always quit cold turkey. I mean, there's I've read numerous stories of like video games ruining people's lives and they had to I mean, they just had to stop because because it was destroying their lives and I don't think I could ever get to that point. Like even with as obsessed as I was with Counter Strike, I was still playing other games and I was still doing stuff. Like it didn't
Yeah.
it didn't interfere with my work. Like I didn't have a problem where I like someone should have stepped in and intervened. It was just an internal problem for me.
Yeah, it
Um,
was just internal conflict.
yeah, and really that's like I think that's where it's burnout and maybe not so much like an addiction that's like crippling and stuff. Um, yeah, and I mean, it can just happen in general. You don't even have to be playing games that much, right? You could just be playing games at some regular amount, a couple hours a day, or you could not even push 10 hours a week. And at some point, like like we happened to us recently, it just kind of got to the point where I don't know why I just didn't feel single player games. I was just done with them for a long time, and I was like, shit, am I just never gonna want to play them again?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's not necessarily burnout for single player games. It's more just I just don't enjoy them as much as I used to. Maybe it's just my current state of my life. I have stuff to do. I have obligations, so I just choose to not. For me, sometimes they're just like cheap thrills. It's like a one time thing. I do it once, and it's like it really impresses me, and I get that rush. But then when I play it again, I already know its tricks. But with multiplayer games like pub, it's a lot more varied. I can have a dozen matches, and then that one match I win, and I want to play it again. But
Oh
with single
god,
player, I don't get that.
yeah. Like the game we just played, man.
Yeah.
Nothing to give you heart disease, like being on well maybe not heart disease, but like heart problems later in life. To just be on this edge of frustration and tension, wondering where someone is when you're both laying
Oh yeah.
in grass 5 yards from each other, and you're like, oh my god. I hit.
Still never even saw the guy.
Yeah, I never even saw the guy. He died to the barrier because I out healed him, but that's it. Oh man, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's very interesting. It's a fascinating thing, and like, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody studying up on it, but uh, I imagine it's still a fairly new thing. Video games uh, are one of the newest forms of entertainment, if not the like. I don't really know if there's ever been technically another medium that's come out after video games. You know,
Yeah, I can't really think of anything.
because you could think of like, at best you could say YouTube videos, like internet videos, are kind of their own thing because they're not
Well,
really film or TV shows, right? But it's like it depends because it that then the lines really start getting blurred and it's just some other
well,
form
yeah,
of video
it's
content.
the enjoyment. It's the way you get your enjoyment. I mean, I wouldn't say there's mediums for enjoyment. It's really down to the person. I mean, like I have hobbies that I like, and sometimes I'm like, what, I want to step back. It's all in my head. I just thinking about it too much, and so I decided to take a break. But with video games, I think that's just a facet of someone's life. It's just. Um, but in terms of mediums, I mean, in terms of storytelling, yeah, I say games are a medium for that.
Well,
But
but that's what I mean
I think
because like
entertainment just comes down to the
because
individual.
video, yeah, but I'm saying like just as an I like as a category, right? Because you could be a movie buff, or you could be a bookworm, or you could be a gamer. And really,
Yeah.
is there anything else like of that sort of, like, it could tell a story, or you could just have this sort of pointless, like, pointless thing told. Like, there's videos and there's books and there's video games and maybe music, but like music sort of lies in its own weird mishmash. I mean, nowadays, like, it's all kind of melded together at some point. There's video games that are basically novels. There's video games that are basically movies.
Hmm.
There's video games that are just music. I mean, shit. Rhythm games are just music. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm on the I mean, as far as I can tell, I'm on the end of a burnout. I don't see any reason. And yeah, maybe burnout's not completely correct, but excuse me. It it's about as close to a burnout as
Yeah.
anything else, I guess. Like, and it doesn't
Well, I
have
think
to be for games as a whole, right? It could be for
yeah.
different things. Like, I had a burnout on Counter Strike. I was still able to play games after that, just sort of here and there, and then I eventually got back into it fully. But um, like, I had a burnout on single player games in a way that I just didn't really feel like I could. I don't even remember exactly what I was playing before that, but I just lost the taste of it. Yeah, and it is fairly poignant what you were saying, is that there's something about sort of that loop of the gameplay, the gameplay play loop of a multiplayer game versus a single player game, that it really it like it feeds that. And of course there's different kinds, but like when you come to Counter-Strike or Battlegrounds or Call of Duty or anything like that, where it's these individual matches that are piece by piece, like spaced apart, um, especially with declining uh, time. I think that's why you find a lot of multiplayer games are, obviously they're popular with kids, but they're very popular with older people, because
Hmm.
especially when you think about a Call of Duty, you can hop on Call of Duty or Battlefield and have a couple matches or a single match with your friends every night after work,
Yeah.
have a beer, get off, go to bed.
It's not that much of an investment. It's just
Yeah, and if you can't do it a night, it doesn't stop anything. But like with single player games, I mean, especially with some of these games where they're super story driven or they're super like I think about Skyrim and the first time or maybe the second time I ever played it. It's probably the second time. I started a new game. I played it for a while. I was maybe 20 hours into it. I left it, played other games. It came back, and then I was just like, what the fuck was I even doing? Like, you have a quest list, but then you're just kind of like, but I had like, you have purpose when you play a game, especially at least for me, especially when I play an RPG, like that is of the Elder Scrolls or the Fallout type. I have a goal in mind every step of the way. You're going somewhere, right? You're walking to a town to do this quest or just to go buy something. And you come back and you're like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing when you take enough time off. And yeah, that
yeah.
that can be really frustrating and really not fun. And yeah, when it's something like Skyrim, like, you know, where if you want to do everything, like it take you 100 hours or whatever, that could take you a long time to do. And maybe you don't want to spend half a year to a year,
Mm.
playing a single game that has like an end goal when you could play something like Call of Duty that has an endless loop of, like you said, because you play with different people, sort of endlessly varying, uh like the game is always different.
Mm.
You will never have the exact same experience. Um, and yeah, that's a real beauty with multiplayer games. Not to say you couldn't get burned out on those, because like,
Oh yeah, in
I
some ways I'd say that you're more prone to burn out in multiplayer games,
yeah,
but
I mean,
with
especially if
it's mm,
if you have like we were talking about with Overwatch, where you can have people talking, and then if if a community is toxic, that can really deal a lot. Like, and we'll totally get into that on another topic another time. uh Toxic communities and toxicity in gaming in general. But yeah, there's just a whole multiple of reasons. I mean, bad performance, right? Like sometimes, uh, uh with Siege, when you were having bad internet, and with
yeah.
I mean, even with PUBG in the like early days, it it gets frustrating when you just can't do it.
Just can't win. Keep getting killed. Yeah, it's lack of performance, just things not going your way. Yeah,
Yeah,
leads to
and
burnout.
I mean, especially when it's RNG, right? Like when there's any amount of randomization, and like the barrier, for example, sometimes you just get a bad
In
spawn.
PUBG. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In Battlegrounds, with the enclosing barrier, it's random. So sometimes you can jump out of the plane, land in an area, and you're on the opposite end of the map from the barrier,
Mm.
and you have no vehicles. You gotta run. Sometimes, like especially when you find really good gear, but then you just have to run for half the game, and then you die.
Yeah.
Either the barrier kills you or you get in the barrier and then someone shoots you. Like, it's infuriating. Like, it's this,
Certainly is.
yeah, it's just this moment of stress that like spikes in your in your body, and you're like, wow, I do not need this feeling right now.
Hmm.
You just want to escape it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very delicate thing. Uh, is I mean, it's all person driven as well. Like different people are going to handle it differently. I mean, it's kind of like with Souls, right? Like Souls games, people can't stand the difficulty. Some people just cannot play it. And when you're like me and you really like, not necessarily struggling, but you like having a hard time and overcoming that. Like that's something that
Like
personally,
challenging
yeah,
gameplay.
like personally to me, difficulty is gratifying because if I can
Mm-hmm.
overcome something, like obviously if it's just a brick wall and it's not possible, I just give it up. But um if if it's something that I can overcome, like with Souls, like I find myself fairly good at those games. Um but it's still challenging and that's great. Like that is perfect to me. Just like some of my best gaming experiences, like my best nostalgia moments is just Dark Souls 1. And the
Mm-hmm.
first time I ever played it, having no idea what it was, just randomly going over to James's house and him of all people having Dark Souls and just being like, "Hey, is this game? Play it." And I played it and I was like, "This is the most horrible video game I've ever played. I want it." Like I'm dying all the time. I lose my souls all the time. Why can I not put it down? Why do I just have to keep going? And that's like, again, we will talk about the Soul series eventually, and
Oh, we
just
certainly will. Yeah.
the brilliance that From Software has to design a game that is addicting. Like,
And so unique too.
yeah,
Just so well, maybe not so much anymore with the copycats of it, but well, okay, I wouldn't say copycats, but definitely things that are inspired by it. But
oh
yeah,
yeah. I mean, some of them are on the freaking nose. You know, Lords of the Fallen. They're like, yeah, we're Dark
yeah.
Souls. Fairly inferior, but yeah, like I mean, a lot of these people like Salt and Sanctuary, you know, that is they're like, yeah, we're a 2D Dark Souls. Like they've literally said that. Our game is
Hmm.
a 2D Dark Souls. And it's interesting because maybe it's the precedent of like roguelikes that the idea of being a Souls like is so like we're people aren't ashamed because roguelikes came back really big a couple years ago. And everyone's like, man, roguelike, like that's a thing to think about and be like that's positively received. Um, which is interesting because like before, I mean, roguelikes are old, as almost as old as Rogue itself. Like they started popping up right after it. Um, but to to see like where a lot of people would like get mad when you copied their game or whatever, to see something like the way Souls was just so embraced, and for people to be like, yeah, we're making that game reskinned, like little differences, little touches and nuances, but for them to literally come out and be like, this is what Dark Souls would be like if it was 2D, and it is. It's just everything there is nothing different about it except for its perspective, which is, you know, it's just a side scroller.
Uh-huh.
Or I guess a platformer would be technically.
Still haven't played that. I want to.
I want to as well. I was waiting for it to be on Vita, and I'm not sure if it ever actually came out. It's a game that I just really don't like. There's a lot of we'll probably have a whole thing on that too. Like I could talk forever on the Vita, but you know, there are certain games that to me make nothing but sense to be a Vita game, and I will hold out on playing them if I know I have the ability to on Vita.
Mm. I miss my PSP. Makes me miss my PSP.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought about getting a Vita. Really did, but I'm just not much of a mobile gamer. I don't play games on my phone. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
It's either hardcore games or nothing. Like it's
Yeah,
not that
I
kind of
mean,
gamer.
the thing is that like you can find really good game. I mean, there's a lot of really good games on the Vita. The thing is that just a large majority of them are going to be JRPGs, really. That's kind of what it is, a JRPG machine at this point.
Hmm.
Which is fine, like it's great, but
Yeah, I like JRPGs.
yeah, it really depends on the experience you're going for. There are a lot of games that are like smaller games that I want to play anyways. That for me, it's like, well, why would I buy this on computer? Like we talk about this sometimes. Like there's just experiences I'm not like I don't want to sit down at a mouse and keyboard and stare at a screen. and play this little game. I want to do that in like relaxing in bed, and the Vita gives me that. It's perfect. Um, and I mean, honestly, it's it's a mobile PS4 because I mean I can't go anywhere with it, but I could go lay down in bed and stream my PS4 with very negligible amount of latency, like I almost not noticeable most of the time, and I could play PS4 games. You know, I could play Persona because for some reason Persona 5 isn't on the Vita because whatever reason. Even though it'd be so like it's not like it's graphically intensive. It's
Mhm.
all aesthetic, but yeah, I don't know. Uh, so yeah, that's all I have to say about Burnout. I think. Uh,
Yeah, but me as well.
yeah, if you think you might be experiencing it, just really sit down and think about it.
You'll
Try.
get through it.
Yeah, yeah, just and that's really it. The important thing is like if you can catch it, if you can see it, um, then you can say like, oh, I need to take a step back. Whether it's you need to take a step back from games in general, multiplayer games, a specific game, like be able to just step back from it, take a breath of fresh air, play some other games, go for a hike, just like do whatever. And then come back, you know, and
Yeah.
you'll either be able to do like wean off of it and move on, or you'll come back and you'll be like, man, I like this more. Because that's one thing is you can get like I guess you can when you think about it, like even in small spurts, you can have mini burnouts, right? Like you can burn out in a
Mhm.
day and be like, man, I just can't do this anymore. Like we've done that before, where we're just like,
Oh
I
yeah, I've
just
done that a lot.
yeah, and it's like you just need to not
It's
play
like
it right now,
I've
and
been
you just need to
killed
stop.
by a person I haven't seen about 5 times in a row now in PUBG. I kind of want to stop playing for today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had that.
you
Or like I'm
just
playing Warframe right now, and sometimes I'm just like too much grind. I'll play it tomorrow when I have time.
yeah,
And I just give it a break.
yeah. Well, hey, that's actually a pretty good segue into if we want to talk about the games we're playing right now.
Yeah, I'm playing Warframe. For those of you who haven't heard of it, it came out. It's been out for a while now. It's free to play. I guess the way I could describe it is hack and slash
Looter shooter.
space ninja looter shooter. Yeah,
Yeah, third person hack and slash space ninja looter shooter. Uh,
it's very hard to describe to people who have never played it before. It's very hard. It's like describing a MOBA to somebody that's never heard of a MOBA. Um,
shit. Yeah.
Funnily enough, Charlie Wallace both described to me Dota,
Uh
a
huh.
MOBA, and Warframe. And I was like, I have no idea what either of these are. And I was like, I remember with Dota, I was like, that sounds stupid. And then I played it, and I'm like, I love it. But yeah. But Warframe's pretty great. I haven't played Dota in a while, but Warframe's pretty great. It's just everything a free to play game should be. It's ingenious how they get you to spend money on it, though. If you don't like a grind fest, then you might not like this game. But it has a unique aesthetic. If you have played it in the years prior, like maybe you played it a couple of years ago, and you're like, hey, this isn't for me. And, played it, you picked it up, played it for a couple hours. Hey, this isn't for me. Or if you're an old player and you stopped playing it a while back, I think now is the time to do it because they update the game very frequently and it's very high quality. I remember I played it about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I just thought I don't like it. And recently, within the past few months, I came back and I'm in love with it. I have over 150 hours in it already. Before the semester started, not in that time
Jeez.
period, but plus what I have now.
Yeah.
Um, and it's great. It's the basically what it is just like you said, a space ninja looter shooter, and you play these things called warframes, and they're basically like golems, and you're a Tenno, and you control these things, and there's the Grenier, the space potato people. There's the Corpus. There's the Infection, which is totally not the Flood.
I was gonna
And
say, like, I think a great way to describe this actually is using Halo. Um, so you
yeah, it's
are,
pretty similar,
I
actually.
mean, if you think about the aesthetic, like if you've ever watched like the extended Halo universe, like Halo Legends and stuff like that, um, the characters you play as Tenos, they're just forerunners. That's all they are. They're forerunners of different shapes and sizes. That's what they look like. Um,
Yeah,
you're these like forerunner character alien characters who are basically trying to attack different races of the Covenant and the Flood.
yeah.
um,
It's
yeah,
actually very similar to Halo now that I think about. Yeah,
yeah.
like
I
in
mean,
terms
obviously
of this.
mechanically and stuff,
Uh huh.
vastly different, but yeah, like just as an aesthetic thing. Which I mean, it's not a bad thing. Halo's a gorgeous
No,
game,
it's
and I think
yeah, it's pretty good for a free to play.
yeah, they do enough to differentiate themselves. It's not like you could just sit there and be like, "Oh man, Halo ripoff." Like I don't think that
Yeah, no. When
applies
I
at all.
say it's similar to Halo, it's not really. But to be honest, I'm not that experienced with Halo. I played Halo 3. I loved it. After that, I haven't played a whole much more. But that's the Flood. It's definitely the Flood. You can't look at the Infected and not see the Flood. It's totally the Flood. It's like
Yeah,
Flood, not Flood.
that's
You
the
know.
that's the biggest thing is they're just like
Yeah.
the other ones don't look like really maybe
Yeah.
mishmashes. Like if you squinted, you could see like an arbiter that looks like like a grunt, but other than
Yeah.
that, like they don't really look like them at all. But yeah, the infected is the Flood. Like it's just
Yeah.
it just is.
And yeah, like in terms of aesthetics, it's graphically impressive and it has awesome aesthetics. There's so many varied looking warframes because warframes are basically like a merging of flesh and metal and stuff, and they had this very odd style to them.
Cyborg,
It's
no?
yeah, cyborg kind of, um, and they have this very like organic material turned to metal kind of look. Like think metal mixed with bone. And plus, you can customize your warframes in a number of ways. You can make them look awesome. But yeah, the whole point of the game is just unlocking stuff. It has a pretty awesome mission I'm not going to spoil called the Second Dream. If you've heard anything about Warframe, you've probably heard of it. It introduces a whole new element of the game. It's awesome, and it has an awesome soundtrack that they composed there. Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but if you have the time, it take you a little while. It'll take you maybe about a couple weeks to get there if you play every day to get to the second dream. It's worth it. That's where I am. That's where I am. And yeah, it's a great game. It's a great game. What have you been playing? What?
Well, I was actually playing Warframe with you a little bit. We just haven't played uh,
Yeah,
to-
yeah.
together a whole lot the past couple of weeks, so we haven't been able to get back into it. But I'm sure we will eventually. Um,
We'll talk about it eventually too. Yeah,
yeah, I
the
mean
successes.
it,
It's a free
it
to play game.
yeah, it really is great. Like it's one of those things that especially if you're a fairly experienced gamer, like you've played several different genres and enough of the games, you've been playing for long enough, like you've obviously heard free to play, you've tried some free to play games, and you've probably been like, "Oh, this sucks."
Yeah,
As like a whole thing, like free to play can be it's not free to play isn't even its own genre, but it kind of is just in the idea of like it
you
probably
know what
means
to
the
expect.
yeah,
You
it,
know what
it
to
means the
expect.
game's probably gonna suck, and Warframe. I'm not sure who develops it.
Digital Extremes.
Digital Extremes. Oh yeah.
They're the same people that made a game called Dark Sector, which may or may not canonically be linked into the Warframe universe. But they have a lot of nods to it.
Huh.
Yeah, this game. It came out like in 2008. It was
Yeah.
pretty interesting game actually. Very violent, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like it's weird because I think I actually had this thought way back when it was first coming out. and I do want to reiterate, like if you're someone who saw it in the beginning and was like, maybe that's not, I don't really want to touch it, or you played it in the beginning and you're like, I don't really want to touch it, I would definitely like agree with you. This is the time to get into it. If you're, especially if you're like, even if you're someone who played it before, or if you're someone who just has never even heard of it, or maybe heard of it and heard bad reviews and didn't want to touch it, like give it a chance now. I think it's in the best state it will ever be in. Like,
Yeah, especially with Planes of Eidolon coming out,
yeah,
that's going
like
to be a whole new open world expansion they're going to release for free, from what
yeah,
I
see,
hear.
and that's gonna change a lot of the way the game operates.
Yeah, and the
So
devs have said that the whole cell-based dungeon kind of thing isn't the way the game was meant to be. It's just a filler for them to develop other things. Go
yeah,
ahead.
well, yeah, and that's the thing is like when we started playing, I did look back over it, and it was like it's an interesting roadmap they like not necessarily laid out, but that they have followed, and that like the quality might not have been the highest in the beginning, but it was going to be a free to play game. They were like, we just need to get this game out here, and they chose free to play probably to just like to say like you can just play it, like there's no barrier to entry.
Mm,
And it's hard not to blame a lot of developers for that. Like that's, we'll talk about free to play as a whole thing eventually as well, but it's really hard to tell someone like, just charge for your game. Like I understand as a consumer personally, I'd rather pay for a game. Just make a really good game that needs to be
yes, yes.
needs to be paid for. Because free to play is a very very hard model to work with, and Warframe is absolutely the exception, not the rule. Um, a very
Yeah.
good exception, and proof that the model can work. I mean, you look at certain games on mobile. As much as I don't like looking at mobile for any kind of advice on how to make a video game, there are
Hmm.
some games that manage to do a decent job for what it is, right? Like you think about Clash of Clans, and yeah, it definitely encourages the whales to sort of buy into it and stuff like that. But I think what's significant and why you saw so many people playing it that weren't paying any money, like I don't think my brother ever spent a dime on that, but holy shit, did he play a lot. I was like, and I played it for a little bit, and I joined in his clan, and I would look at his base and I'm like, oh my god, like your stuff is so high level. How much time have you wasted in this game? Um, and and that's really it. Is just like I don't think he ever spent a dime in that game, but he was still managed to be fairly high level. Like the clan would compete. Like we would have wars, like the clashes. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole point of the game.
I played it very, very, very little, but I
Yeah,
understand what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah. So,
it was very popular when we went to high school.
oh my god, it was hugely. And yeah, so in order to be a good free to play game, obviously, I think the first thing that you have to do is just to be accessible to someone who's not going to pay you money, and
Mhm.
good to that. Like you have to be good to that customer.
Yeah, you don't want to mistreat your customers, no matter who they are.
Yeah, even if they're the ones not paying, because too many of these games, and again, we'll talk about this more, but too many of these games get stuck in the loop of the whale where they make the majority of their money off this one person who like off these like 1 to 4 people who pay millions of dollars into the game for whatever reason, and that offsets everyone else, but then they have like this massive advantage, and you have the whole idea of pay to win.
And they only value those people. Hmm.
Yeah, and Warframe does a very good job of
Yeah.
avoiding that. And yeah, so I just wanted to add to like say, that is absolutely a great game. If you're looking into a game, especially on PC, it doesn't take a whole lot to run. So if you're just getting
No,
into PC gaming, that's not a bad first pick. It's free to play. It's an interesting game, like a genre sort of its own. It's like Metal Gear Rising meets Halo.
yeah, yeah. That's a good
um,
description of it.
it's really unique, and just a good try for somebody who, or even if you just you just need something different.
Yeah.
It's different.
No
Um,
upfront monetary investment. Might as well.
yeah. Um, but yeah. So excuse me. I have been playing. Um, well, I've been playing, I guess, several games, but for the sake of our October episodes, I will talk about one of the games that I'm playing the most, which is Dragon Quest VIII for 3DS. It is a re-release. I dare to call it a remaster because it's really hard to necessarily tell in a 3DS if this PS2 game. I think it is like it's it's high, like it's because I think the 3DS has higher than a 48p screen, so like the resolution's been adjusted. Like it's been built for a 3DS, but they did clean up a lot of it. It's not as like I'm pretty sure if I launched it on a PS2 right now on my TV, it'd be aliased as hell. So I'm fairly certain that it is remastered to some degree, but like like a lot of games of its sort from the PS2 days, I think a lot
Mhm.
of it holds up regardless of that because when you look back at older games like Sly Cooper
I was
and
just thinking that. Yeah.
yeah, like Sly Cooper and like this game, games where the aesthetic is really what carries that game visually. Like it's not very graphically like crazy. It's not Final Fantasy. Like Dragon Quest is at least like in a lot of ways isn't Final Fantasy, but especially in its aesthetic. Where Final Fantasy, like at least the mainstream games, typically go for nowadays go for really high fidelity for what like the console it's on is capable of. And like cinematics that oh my god are gorgeous. Like I still look at 10 sometimes in those cinematics and I'm like, this is on a PS2. Like of course the cinematics are pre-recorded and stuff like that. They it would never have been able to render in real time on a PS2, but it's still fascinating that their games are so gorgeous and they really have a an eye for that fidelity. But with Dragon Quest, it's much simpler. You have repeated textures a lot, like not in the way that like you see a tile texture, but in the way that every blade of grass is the same, and it's just a plain bright green, but the color palette is beautiful. The aesthetic is great. I mean, I guess it really depends. It basically looks like Dragon Ball Z. Like from the beginning, I always thought that, and it's kind of funny. There's this thing in the combat because it is turn-based combat. Um, like where you can attack and you can defend and stuff like that for a turn. And there's a thing called Psych Up, which is essentially if you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, when when Goku, goes like Super Saiyan, or even when he
Mhm.
would go, oh my god, it's been so long. But there was like a state he would go into that wasn't Super Saiyan, but it was Kai something. Uh,
I never watched Dragon Ball Z. I can't tell you.
okay, but anyways, yeah, he would go into this like enhanced state, right? It would essentially be just he's more powerful because he charged himself up. Um, and that's all it really is kind of going Super Saiyan. But every time you do it, you psych up and your tension level raises. And the first time you psych up, it's 5, and the second time is 20, and then the third time is 50. And I don't really remember how it works, but it's semi random that you will be able to get one more tension out of it, like one more level out of it. And you can try to psych up, and basically if you're not able to, it'll just say nothing happened and you'll stay at 50. But if you can psych up one more time, then you'll go to psych level 1 or tension level 100, and it makes your character all glowy and powerful, and you can have multiple characters and they all do that. And it's funny because basically when your main character who looks like Goku or Gohan, like however you want to look at it, when he goes max level, he just looks like Super because he has a bandana on. So he looks like Goku
Mhm.
with a bandana, you know? And he's like if he goes max tension level, he's Super Saiyan Goku. Like there's literally nothing else to it. That's all he is. He looks like Super Saiyan Goku. And that always made me laugh. Like I when I was a little kid, I used to think like is this supposed to, like I never understood because it's Dragon Quest, Dragon Ball Z. I was like, is there some relation? And maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe it's just same artists or something. Because even if like for those who know Dragon Ball Z, like there's even a character who kind of looks like Trunks, and
Uh-huh. I know who
there's
Trunks is. Yeah, I know who that
yeah
is.
and there's like the most famous female character Bulma. There's characters that
Bulma.
look like Bulma, and
Yeah,
like
it's a very similar art style. I wonder if they were inspired by one another.
I don't know.
Or
I
maybe it was just from that period of animation, like Japanese animation. I don't know.
well, no other animes really looked like Dragon Ball Z. Like there's something. It's very like it's not an accident, right? The eyes are the exact same,
Yeah,
and really
that's what
nothing else shares that. It's just Dragon Quest and Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball in general, that shares that aesthetic.
probably have to look into that. See like who was the
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like when I was younger, it wasn't really so easy to just Google anything. So at this point, I could probably Google it and it'd pop up immediately. But
oh, thank God for Google.
yeah, but yeah, it's just that's an interesting tidbit about it, I guess. But yeah, that's a game from my childhood that I never finished. It's got a good story. I wouldn't call it like enticing. It's definitely not Final Fantasy level at all. It doesn't draw me in. And one thing I don't like is it's from this period where man, I really don't know. And even when I was a little kid, I remember playing God, I don't know how old I was, but I still lived in Corpus. So I was younger than 10, but I was
Mm.
playing Final Fantasy X, and in the beginning, you get to choose your name. Obviously, your character has a name, and you can stick with that. Which
Mm.
in Final Fantasy X is Titus. People say Titus. I think this is a retarded name. It's Titus. Um, and but like there's no consequence for changing your name because when there's voiced dialogue nobody says your name anyways
Of course not.
because they let you choose your name and because of that like and I completely disagree with this like it goes into the idea of sometime like a lot of games for a while were like oh you can make like a lot of games really wanted you to just make your kooky quacky custom character that's all you.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it's an MMO, yeah, I want to do that. But I don't want that in a single player RPG. When it's like Elder Scrolls or Skyrim, I get it. You have different races. That makes sense. Um, but even to some degree, it kind of makes sense to sort of do the level of like what Fallout did, which it really only did it with your butler bot, um,
Mm.
where like they had a billion names that you could choose from, and he would say it, but really only him. Like,
No, yeah, nobody else.
and I mean,
Her
it's
dead
hard
wife,
to
yeah,
yeah, and it's hard to tell someone
her
that
husband.
or it's hard to incentivize that a company should do that because like all the recording hours and like that's a lot of work. Um,
Yeah.
so I get that, but yeah, like when it comes to Final Fantasy, like the script would have just honestly, and every time they do it, it would just be better if you told me who this character was
Yeah.
because I can't even
See.
customize them visually like Titus
Mm.
and I guess he doesn't really have a name. Like, there's a character who calls him Gov, like for governor.
Hmm.
Uh, but other than that, he really doesn't have a name, anyways. But these protagonists that you play as, I'm not him. I'm playing him. Like, if you
Hmm.
you know, I mean, you think about like the silent protagonist, which is supposed to be you, right? Like the whole point of a silent protagonist is that you can be that person. Essentially, you can live through their eyes in like a first person shooter, especially you have a silent protagonist. But like you think about even Fallout, Half-Life, you're still Gordon Freeman, but you can be Gordon Freeman, right? And it's like when you play Master Chief, you can be Master Chief. These are people that you can be, but they are still like they're telling you you are this person, not be whoever you want to be. And instead, like a lot, especially JRPGs, really fell into this problem where they were like, this person is whoever you want it to be, and I don't like that because, like, again, it's just there's no reason for it. I think even Persona 5 does this. And like this is a game way later that still has this problem where it's like just the 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 voice acting is so good in that game. This is Persona. The voice acting is so good and the cinematics are so good and your character doesn't talk. And I'm just like, why? I can't change the way he looks. I think I can give him a name, which I just gave him the default name, but like you have all these lines of voice. You could have just thrown in another one. I mean, Titus talks. You could have just thrown in
Yeah.
another one. And
Give him the
Dragon,
option of a gender.
yeah, and in Dragon Quest, your guy doesn't talk. And when people address him, it's interesting. In the text, they say the name you typed in. So um, like there's a line where one of the characters, Yangus, calls you. He's the one that calls you Gov, and it says like he has like that Cockney, no, maybe not Cockney. I'm not sure if I'm exactly that weird like country British accent. Uh,
Cockney.
is that Cockney?
Probably.
Yeah, where he's like, "Oi, Gov." Uh,
Yeah, it's Cockney.
okay, yeah. So he's like, "Oi, Gov," blah 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 blah. But in the text, it says, "Oi, insert whatever name you typed in here, blah 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 blah."
Yeah, there have been other games that do that as well. I can't remember what they are, but that's a similar thing. I've seen it
Yeah,
before.
and that's like, it's interesting because like, good on you for at least making it fluid. Like they say your name like, or rather, they address you a lot, and in the text your name is spelled out. But what they say is a like they like
A
the
placeholder for your name.
yeah, something to work around it. And it's interesting because it's like, good job, you solved a problem that didn't exist almost. Like they did a good job, but they didn't need to do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. But and it seems like I'm shitting on this game a lot, and it's such a small thing. Like I just went into a big rant about probably the most insignificant part of that entire game. But yeah, like I can't really remember, but in this game when you're running around there are monsters that you touch and they like it's open world, but when you're walking around there's monsters that you touch, or if they see you they'll come after you. um and when you touch them, then you engage in the turn-based combat. You know, you have a
Mm-hmm.
whole field full of monsters. You can avoid all of them, or if you touch one, then you engage in that combat, and then it like switches to the combat mode, and it's a whole thing. Um, and I can't. I just, for some reason in my head, when I remember playing it, that wasn't a thing. I remember playing it where you would just run, and it would be sort of like a lot of Final Fantasies do, where it just, instead of like, it would just, after enough steps you would just be in a Pokeball, or be in, oh my god, be in a battle. Sort of
Mhm.
like how Pokemon does. If you go into tall grass and you just walk around in circles for a bit, you're gonna be in a battle. Um,
Mhm.
I could be totally wrong about that. Like I could just not be remembering it correctly, which is probably it. But that would be an interesting thing if that was something they changed. Um, yeah, this is. I don't know. It's just it's such an enticing game. Like the gameplay loop is so nice. Like I have definitely aged out of a lot of turn-based games. Like it's not my flavor anymore. Like I used to play every JRPG that I could get my hands on. I loved turn-based
Mhm.
combat. Like it was the shit. And then one day I didn't really want to buy any more games. Like Persona's the only turn-based game, combat game that I've.
Yeah, kind of like me in strategy games. I'm the same way. I used to like strategy games a lot. Now I just, or should I say RTS games
I
rather?
was gonna say like RTS or
RTS.
like
Yeah.
what's Civ? Because Civ isn't an RTS, right? Is that?
No, it's not. It's not real time. No, it's turn
Yeah,
based.
turn-based strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a genre that I've always wanted to get into, turn-based strategy, but I just couldn't. But
Yeah, I tried to too.
yeah, like I agree. And I think I still have a bit of like want to play some more RTS. Like Stronghold Crusader 2 came out, and I played a little bit, but again, that was during the time where I just didn't want to play single player games, so I was just done with that. I didn't even want to get like into it anymore. I played a little bit and then I was done. But I want to come back to it and just try and see because yeah, RTS games are they're brilliant, but yeah, I think that's something as well. Like turn based and RTS, I grew out of them. Like Persona's the only game of that genre of turn based combat that has released in the past. I don't know 6 7 years that I have bought. And then Dragon
Probably
Quest.
because there's more enticing about it other than the combat. It's so well put together. I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and like I, it's a lot like MMOs, right? Like I used to be really big into several MMOs, and I fell out of it for that reason. That gameplay loop, the mechanics are horrible to me, and turn-based strategy isn't horrible to me anymore. But definitely MMOs are horrible to me now, where I can't just I like you could never convince me that there's some compelling reason to click on something and let the battle like I don't like clicking on an enemy and just being like that's how the combat works. And I know people are going to like be really pissed at that and be like, "Yeah, you got to use like your skills and stuff like that." And it's like, "Sure, yes, I get it. I was there. Like I've done that before. I just can't do it anymore. I just can't find any entertainment in that." And that's why
Hmm.
games like Arcage, though that still does have that fairly heavily, but Arcage, I can't remember.
I
Um,
had.
that game and Black Desert Online, especially Black Desert Online, are so intriguing to me. They follow similar, like they're still MMOs and it's still MMO combat where it's a dice roll. It's an RNG system, but it's like individual actions are player driven. Like you have to click for every swing of your sword. You have to dodge. You have to, you have to be way more active and way more into the combat. And for me, like I need that. I'm like the combat is very important in these games. Like if you made an MMO
Mhm.
that wasn't important about like that it wasn't important, then yeah, I could be like, yeah, there was a game that I played that I would actually like to go back to, though I cannot imagine that anyone plays it anymore. It was called Endless Online. I think it was Endless. Um, it
Mhm.
was a 2D pixel like isotropic. Um, wait, am I saying that right?
Isometric.
Isotropic. Jesus Christ. It was an isotropic filtering game. No, it was an isometric game, pixel art isometric game, but it was an MMO, and I love that game. Brutally hard, a grind fest. Oh my god. But again, like when I was into MMOs, like that's what I really craved grinding. I don't know what it was. It was just it's a weird time in my life. Oh, but yeah, I don't know. I can't do that anymore. But playing Persona 5, it's a very intricate turn-based strategy, and then playing Dragon Quest, it's not so much intricate in the combat itself. Like there's the psych level, which adds definitely an element to it, and enemies can do it too. That I always love that. I love when, um, like again, to call back to Dark Souls. One of my favorite things is like when you think about the earliest characters you fight, like the first skeleton. It's always almost like undead skeleton looking creatures
Hmm.
um, that you
Not
that
quite skeletons, but
yeah, just
quite
the
lizards. Yeah.
hollowed undead that are like
Yeah. Although
almost
you do fight skeletons, though.
yeah, there are skeletons at some point in
Yeah.
every Dark Souls, I guess, huh?
Like the withered undead ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the very very zombie like definitely past their prime
Yeah.
uh enemies. And when you think about it, it's always very interesting because they actually have more health than you do.
Yeah.
Like you do a significant well, shit, I don't even know if you do yeah, you do more damage usually per swing depending on, the class you choose and the weapons you have. But like in that very beginning area, you're like you're very vulnerable. They can kill you. And I mean even way later, like if you're a very high level character, if you get stuck in like one of those movement combos that just like are infuriating, you can't roll out of a corner or something, like you could die.
Yeah.
But you can die to anything. I love when even the minions, even the like the mobs have like it makes the world feel congruent when the mobs have traits that you as a player have and your party members have. Like
Hmm.
you can have these like fairly innocuous enemies that you're fighting in Dragon Quest, and they could do like so little damage it doesn't matter. Uh,
They all play by the same rules. Yeah.
yeah, but they could psych up, right? And like if you're not prepared to kill them quick enough,
This
they
is
could.
Dragon Quest, right?
Yeah, this is Dragon Quest. They can psych up, get their tension level higher, and when your tension level is higher, whatever you do is more effective. So even if like if you have a character whose class is a mage, like you're doing spells, your spells do more damage, or they heal more if you're healing with it. And the thing about tension is like it's an interesting mechanic because like say I'm using my main character, I'm building his tension up so he can do a really powerful attack on this enemy. Um but all of a sudden that enemy damages one of my characters, whether it's him or any of the other two, to the point where they will die in the next round, like if they get hit again.
Hmm.
So I have to think like if he's the only character that can heal at that moment, and that happens, I have to like weigh my options. Do I let this character die, or and do I go back and pay the fee to have them resurrected, or do I like and obviously you have to travel to where you like to places and you have to go through mobs to do that. So if I'm like really far into an area or like doing a dungeon or something where I can't just escape at that moment,
Hmm.
um, do I risk that character dying? Like, there's no guarantee that the enemy will hit them next. Oh, jeez. My computer just did a freaking Windows sound. Thank you, Windows, for being horrible. Who knows what it was even warning me about? Totally loud for these people listening. But yeah, like, do I let my character, that character potentially die if they were to be chosen next to be attacked? Or do I waste my tension building on healing them? and not necessarily waste, but like I was,
Yeah.
I had a plan, and the game makes you think on the fly. Like it has
It's
these,
all about those turn-based games, those turn-based
yeah, they like
strategy games.
they bring a level of depth to it that like it's weird because it's one little mechanic that can change the flow of it, or like
Mm.
there are some enemy characters that they could deal a decent amount of damage, but nothing like it's fairly inconsequential. Um, but they can do this thing where they like build up tension really, really, really fast. Like in one turn, they can be at 50 or 100 tension,
Mm-hmm.
which means that their next move is going to be fucking powerful. Um, and then all of a sudden, whatever plan you had goes out the door. Like if you were planning on killing this one enemy, you have to be like, "Fuck! Now we have to kill this enemy." It's so interesting how like even in the regular, like these aren't even bosses, these are just the mobs you run into on a regular basis in an area.
Mm.
They make you, they really make you think on your feet. And like i think I think that might have been what made me fall out of turn-based games. A lot of the ones either coming out, or at least for me, the ones I had played for a while, I was like, I just don't feel like I'm getting anything out of this, when the action is real time and I have to be thinking about it in the moment. um there's a, like, again, a stress level, and stress isn't usually good, but it's something I vie for in games. Like, I like difficulty and I like being stressed out, because when you overcome it, the relief is so much greater than the stress. Um, and like I don't get, I don't have like anxiety or anything to deal with really. So when I get stressed out on, like, at least with video games, it's never enough that it's like bad for me. Like it's just enough that it's almost like adrenaline rush to a level, to a degree.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like having that unknown like just pop in, and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, like a new plan. I love that. I love the whole thinking on your feet thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a game that really, it feeds some guilty pleasure feelings in my mind, because like one thing I do really like to do in games. I do this in Soul games typically, and really any other RPG, is when you progress, when you have levels that you progress through and they get significantly harder as you progress. I love,
Mm.
like, it's grinding is such a weird finicky thing for me, because like it's a love hate relationship. It's a very thin line between when a grind is intoxicating and fun to do, and when a grind is just so fucking arduous and you just cannot do it anymore. And Dragon Quest is just that beautiful, like, really drives the line on the positive side of being like, I love grinding and just getting to a point where in a certain area I can just fucking go and kill everything, like, and they just do no damage to me. I love getting to the point where like my party is so powerful in this area that I just crush everything. Like it's just satisfying to me. Like they have these cat characters, and I love just like walking up to them in the early stages after I grind it up enough, and just being like, just like heel stomping them into the ground. um, but yeah, like, I don't know. It's just one of those games, and I'm glad I got it. Really good. It feels really good to come back to it, and I am glad to be able to play it again, and I will play it to completion, because I I don't even know how far I got last time. Like I know how far I got, but I don't know how far that is in the game percentage wise.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really nice. It's just old school JRPG to the perfect amount for me. Um, and it's kind of bringing me back into that feeling where I'm like, man, now I really want to get back into Persona, and I want to see some other JRPGs. Like, there's one that I've It came out a while ago that I wanted to play then, but I guess that was still during that period where I was like, just single player games. But I Am
Hmm.
Setsuna. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I have never played it, but
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
and there are two things, or maybe three things about it. One is that basically everything I've heard about it is that it is a very old JRPG style, which, like, again, playing Dragon Quest, I'm getting so much into it. And I'm like, man, I miss this. Like, I miss when I was just in love with this. Um, so I want to get back into that, and I want to try that game for that. The aesthetic is beautiful. I mean, it's just like, just looking at it, it's just that gorgeous painting feeling.
Mhm.
Um, and three is that it is, like, everyone says, it is so sad. And it sounds a little weird, but I really love tragedy. I mean, I know that, like, that's probably a thing for some people, but I love tragedy. There's something about upsetting things, like sad things, that,
Yeah.
like, and I don't get joy from it, right? Like, if it's sad, I'm like, oh god, this, like, that's sad. Like, when a movie actually, like, touches me and is really sad, I'm like, oh my god, this, like, I feel so bad, like, for this person or the situation. But I
Mhm.
really love that. It's again, it's just sort of like,
Schadenfreude.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
Schadenfreude. It's the masochist in me. I'm like, man, I just really love being in these terrible situations. It's like something about
Well,
being,
yeah, it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes or experiencing it. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, that's what it is a lot. Like, it, it just, I mean, and it's a beautiful thing, right? Like, if something is, it's really, so you know what? Walking Dead came out a long time ago. I'm just gonna, spoiler alert for anyone who, I will put something up on the screen if you're watching the VOD of this, and I will take it down when the spoiler is gone. If for some reason you haven't played The Walking Dead first season to completion, what are you doing? Go play that right now. But
I have, by the way, but go ahead.
you haven't?
No, I haven't.
Oh, but we've talked about this, right? You know what
Yeah, we
happens.
have. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Just that ending scene, like, that game makes you so attached to the characters, and to most of the characters, but it's specifically to Lee and Clementine. And I have a specific soft spot for Clementine, um, which is just like a me thing. I'm sure a lot of people do, but, like, for a specific reason. And the attachment to that is really great. And the ending to that, I guess I don't really have to spoil it. Anyways, the ending to that is so fucking sad, because that game does this amazing job of putting you in that character, in a character, in one of those characters' shoes. And there's something, crap, no, I will put the spoiler up. I have to say this. There's something about the feeling of, like, that paternal feeling, where,
Mhm.
like, Lee is not her parent, but he becomes this father to her. And there's something about that that is so intriguing and intoxicating. Like, when you are, like, you become Lee, at least for me, I became Lee. And I was in this moment of, like, I would murder anybody. I would skin someone alive if it meant that Clementine lived. Like, I would go
Yeah.
to the ends of the earth for this
I know what you're
child.
talking about. I know I put myself in his shoes whenever I played it a little bit. I
And
was like,
yeah, and it was so weird because, like, you have a lot of these choices where it's funny because, as good as, like, you think about the games, the Telltale style game, and they always make you do these choices, and it's like, who do you make like you and who do you make not like you? And The Walking Dead is great for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is not, at least for a few of those moments, it is not good, in my opinion, at doing that when it comes to Clementine. Because I am so attached to Clementine, there's literally no question. There is no thought that ever went into any moment, especially like, so there's a moment where you're at like this hotel or like this motel, fenced in motel area,
Hmm.
and you have like very limited food, and you have to decide who to give what, like who to give the food, because you can't give it to everyone, so you choose who to give it to.
Yeah.
And for me, the only hard thing to choose was who do I give the second serving of food to? Because that first serving went to Clementine before that choice,
Yeah.
like before that choice was even brought up. Like it was the quickest decision I think I've ever made in my life was to be like she eats before anybody else.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. I've seen people play through that part, and yeah, it's all the same. Like they always get to Clementine. It's like, oh well, who's the other lucky person?
yeah,
Yeah.
and at the end when it's like this is the percentage, it's like 98% gave Clementine the food. And then everything else is like Duck got a larger percent than the rest of the people, but then everyone else is fairly like even percentage, like the decision to
Hmm.
make. Um, but yeah, like Clementine was just through the roof, and it's interesting because by making such a compelling character, uh, or rather, such a compelling situation between these two characters, they destroyed their own mechanic for a few moments, like which is like fascinating. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. It's just it's so weird to think that you made something so good that it kind of ruined the position you wanted people to be in, right? Like you want, like when you make these decisions, I have to imagine as a dev, you're like, ooh, I really want people to struggle with this decision, and it's not a
Hmm.
struggle at all. It's like it's Clementine all the way. Like I don't know anyone who, like that 2% that didn't do it. Who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Nah, but yeah, uh, totally got off Dragon Quest, but for a good reason. For a good reason. Actually, I don't think I have much more to say about it. It's yeah, it's really brought me into one of the best things about it is that it's brought me back to that feeling I used to get when I played JRPGs. It and again, like with Horizon, that game made me realize that open worlds could be good again. Uh, Made me realize that I want to play those games, and this is doing that for JRPGs. So it's a very fascinating time for me. I'm like really getting into genres that I didn't think that I was gonna get into really anymore. And as someone who hasn't played very much of The Witcher 3 at least, um, like coming off of Horizon, I'm excited to go back into that game because like I knew before that that game was fantastic. You know, it's just it's undeniable. Everyone says it. Um, and it's clear, like even with the limited time I spent in it, it's clear that that game is a cut above the rest.
Hmm.
But just having this passion and this motivation to jump into it is great. Like, and that's because I like, and that kind of goes back to the overall topic of the show is the burnout. If you get burnt out on games in general, like if you're like me where video games are beyond just a hobby, right? It is my pastime. It is my passion. This is what I love to do for fun. I do a lot of other things. You know, I go hiking. I love playing tennis. I love a lot of other things. Video games will always be in my life. And when I'm not into them, those are some of the most like uncomfortable. I wouldn't say horrible. It's not like my life is ending, but it's the most uncomfortable I ever am because it's just like how can I not, right?
Yeah, it's such a part of your life. You know, it's, you grew up playing it, and Yeah, I'm the same way. You know, I think if I didn't have games, I just like there'd be no way to relieve my stress or whatever. No reason, like nothing to look forward to really. I mean, no, that's the only thing I look forward to in life is playing games. But you know, a good portion of it, you know,
Yeah.
is games.
Well, I think that was a fairly good little portion. We got some good mentions out there. Yeah, like if you have a 3DS, honestly, and you like turn-based, you like JRPGs, uh, or you had a PS2 and you played Dragon Quest and didn't know it was on 3DS, go get Dragon Quest. Great. Two good recommendations today. Warframe, Dragon Quest. Unfortunately, I will say, unfortunately, it's only on 3DS. Quite frankly, if I had the option to play it on Vita, I would never have even considered 3DS. Um, and that's for many reasons. I don't know. Nintendo it's just not comfortable. It's just not a comfortable little handheld. It really isn't. Like
Yeah.
it's not a comfortable handheld when you use the buttons. Like I remember back in the day, like when I first had my first DS, um, it was great for it was great for the games I played. Like I played Nintendogs and a lot of other stylus-based games. It's great when you use a stylus, but I feel like the moment you have to use it as like a controller, it just falls apart. It's so like if ever a game gave me Nintendo thumb, it's a 3DS, or if ever a console did, it's a 3DS. Uh, well then, um, I actually, do you know how long we've been running for? Because XSplit is a fantastic program. Tells me how many frames we've run, tells me how big the file size is, but has not told me anything about the runtime.
It's about 2 hours.
About 2 hours. Wow. Well, we didn't even touch on news topics. Okay. Well, I don't know. You wanna kind of bust out news and game releases fairly quickly so that we don't bleed too long into this.
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. I was kind of initially hoping because I mean initially I wasn't expecting we were gonna be able to flesh out that much time, but that's awesome. Fairly good first episode, I think. Mm.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So yeah, let's move on to news. We're gonna do that. You know what? Go from the bottom up, so we can go like oldest to newest.
Mm.
Um, so this first one is actually kind of hilarious and infuriating in what like two in one. PS4 and Xbox One crossplay was live in Fortnite, but has since been corrected. This is an article on GameSpot. Corrected in quotes. I won't really read out the article. I'll just sort of describe it. Basically, what happened was I think it was for a day or a day and a half. PS4 and Xbox One players who owned Fortnite could play with each other. Um, and if anyone who's been keeping up with the whole idea of crossplay, uh, if anyone has been keeping up with that, they'll know that there's been a lot of talk of it recently and a lot of upsetness about it because for as much as I like Sony, they do a lot of things that are really shitty as a gaming company towards their consumer base. Um, and one of those things is that for whatever reason that they deem logical, uh, they won't allow crossplay with Xbox. And I guess at that PC, though they've done it in the past, right? I think you could link your PlayStation account with Steam to use for Portal.
Yeah, I
And
remember that being the case.
yeah, and they've done, I mean, they've done other games that had like these cross sort of things. Like Eve Online had uh, Dust. Was it Eve Online? I think Eve Online had Dust 514 or something like that, which was a
Yeah, that was a first person.
yeah, it was a first person little, I guess, arena shooter. Not arena shooter by mechanics, but a shooter where you were placed in an arena and competed. Anyways, it was just a first person shooter game that sort of linked to uh, the Eve universe and affected it directly by your affiliation with whatever faction. Very interesting. I We could totally talk about that another time. Um, but yeah, so there was this accidental allowance of crossplay, which, like, if you've been following, Sony has said several times that they won't allow crossplay because of parental, or not parental, but like safety issues in quotes. And by that, really, they mean that you know they don't want, like, what they're saying essentially is that they don't want to soil the playing field, I guess. Like, they can't control who's on the other end of an Xbox. So if and it I understand sort of.
Tyranny Xbox users.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Like, they're saying, like, if someone is toxic and malicious on PlayStation, someone can report them. They can, run it through their process and take proper action. If someone's being toxic to someone, like someone's playing PlayStation and someone's being toxic to them from an Xbox, what's the procedure there? So I understand that, but that's like, it's still bullshit. Like, you can work through that. You can sit, like, and Microsoft has, like, I don't know why they're letting Microsoft be the good guy here. Like, it's just, you're come on, Sony, come on.
Yeah, that's totally bull excuse.
Yeah, like, because
Like
Microsoft
they're
is
the
like,
same people
if
that buy
the,
your console.
yeah, like, if Microsoft is like, they're, and it's funny because they're being so, like, shit eating, like, smiling about it, where they're just like, if there's a problem, we can work through it, Sony. And Sony's like just oblivious to how much they're making themselves the bad guy here. But um but yeah, so basically Sony is not allowing it. Like, there's always been things about, like, Rocket League and stuff. Psyonix is basic, yeah, and Psyonix has even came out and said, like, we're ready to do crossplay at any moment. The moment Sony says go, we flip a switch. And so something that I think is interesting is this, and it's funny because Sony has previously said, and they did that in response to Sony's comment on it, because before the whole, like, safety issue, um, they had previously stated that it's a very complicated process. They would talk about, like, oh, we really don't, like, it's very technical and it would take a lot of work. We would love to, but it's just really hard. And Psyonix was like, no, we're ready to go at literally any moment. And then Microsoft was saying that, and then they came with the safety excuse. So it's clear that they just don't want to do it. But it's interesting that this happened, because I kind of wonder, like, is this, it was an accident in quotes for me, because was it really an accident? I almost feel like Epic Games probably did this to just show everyone, hey, it's literally this easy. In fact, we're gonna turn it off to show you how quickly it can be changed.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. Is because with PC, I could see a little bit of issues, in terms of, like, just mechanically in games. Like if you were to give pit PC players against uh, a console player, they're pretty
In a
much,
shooter, right? Like, that makes
yeah, in a
sense.
shooter.
But even then,
But
Microsoft has talked about solutions where, like, they're basically like, yeah, if we do this, like, certain developers have talked about it, because I think, like, Battlegrounds, because it is coming to Xbox fairly soon, actually. I think they plan by the end of the year. Um, because it is coming to Xbox, they want to do cross-platform, and they're saying, like, the solution for that is that if they're gonna allow people on PC to play with Xbox players, you'll have to plug in a controller. And people will
Mhm.
always find a workaround for that, right? But I think in general, like people are saying like, "Oh, that's a problem." I don't think so. Like you're gonna find those people, but people are gonna hack anyways. Um,
Mhm.
but to like that's a great solution to me because if you can put in a software that knows you have a gamepad plugged in, and it's like, oh, he's using a controller, do you want to play this like have it grayed out unless you have a controller plugged in and you're using the controller, and then when you have the controller plugged in, make it to where you can't use your keyboard and mouse, or maybe just like you can't use certain buttons unless you're typing, or unless like only use escape and stuff like that. Like there's plenty of ways that you can just make it work, and Microsoft is finding a solution for it. So yeah, it's just
Good on them. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean amazing, and they've been doing a lot of great things that as great as they are, we're kind of aware that the reason they're doing it is because um, they're losing. Like that's basically it. Is they're losing the console
They're losing
wars
the
and
war.
quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're losing against Sony. Sony is way outselling them in terms of console sales. Um, and it's shitty that like it has to come to that, right? But uh, that's what we got, and they're doing a good job. So we're not, you know, we're still watching them, but they're doing good. So good job, Microsoft, for now. All right, so the next one, uh, YouTube gaming ads sponsorships. So this one was kind of what we were talking about. I was talking about earlier, where this was the one I added in the last minute because I just like saw it and remembered it, and it's one of those things that to me is interesting because basically all this is YouTube gaming is becoming Twitch. There's like these little badges, which like I don't know if you noticed, but it just looks like everything's Twitch. You have these sponsorships, which are basically Twitch subs, and there's badges and like little. There's going to be a tip jar sort of system like Twitch has. Um, sponsor only chats. Instead of subs, it's just sponsorships. It's really just take Twitch and replace subs with sponsorships. Um, and emotes with badges, I suppose.
Yes.
But which is fine. Like by all means, I think this is great. And actually,
Yeah, more competition's great. It gives
yeah,
people a
and
fallback.
actually, I think uh, I was kind of thinking about
Excuse
it
me.
like way back when we first started streaming. I was considering doing this anyway. Like when I first started streaming, I was streaming on YouTube, for a while, and then I switched over to Twitch just to be like, we'll try it. But I think I'm gonna go back to YouTube. Not necessarily because it's any better. Like it's fairly empty, but um, and like having all my eggs in one basket isn't something I enjoy. But like what I would hope to do eventually with like when I can build a new computer and use this computer as a streaming PC, um, I would essentially be streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time because I think both of them have their place. And I really like the ease of use of YouTube. In my opinion,
Oh
it's
yeah.
historically been better than Twitch, like especially when it comes to taking your VODs and working with them and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and to think that this could be a thing, like if our streaming ever picked up at all, to know that we could have sponsorships which are just Twitch subs for YouTube, that's great. Yeah, like you said, more competition. I think it just makes
Yeah,
everything
more
better.
more revenue on both of them. There's nothing that says you can't be a partner of both. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, really not a whole lot else to say there, and not a whole lot else to say about this next one. Video game voice acting strike ends. This happened not too long ago. It was a 340-day strike for the SAG-AFTRA Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. um,
Wowzer.
yeah, wowzer indeed. Yeah, really big voice acting strike. They struck a deal to basically give better bonus payments to the voice actors and stuff like that. All good news. Really, this is just nothing but good news for everybody. Now, your favorite voice actors who might have not been participating in certain games for a while can just immediately go into certain games. Um, I have a feeling now that this is over, you will see probably in the next year or two a bunch of games come out that probably weren't gonna come out until this was over because they were waiting on these voice actors. So, good news. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah. Always good to support for our voice actors to get what they deserve. You know.
Yeah.
I do like that line of work. It's interesting. I would do it if I could make it in that that
Yeah.
field. It's definitely something I'd enjoy doing, especially with all the people like
Jesus.
so much talent, and you don't even have to be a dedicated voice actor. You can just be an actor who does that on the side. They have a lot of the same background. It's just
Oh yeah.
one focuses more on the other.
I mean, and a lot of people do it. I mean, obviously they've gotten more into the to it than just voice acting. But when you think about like the the David Cage game, Beyond Two Souls by Quantic Dream, Willem Dafoe and Ellen Page, like it's they obviously did like mocap and that facial thing where they like put dots all over your face and
Face rig, yeah.
yeah, and they put them in the game, but like you had fairly high class actors doing voice acting, and I think you're seeing a little bit more of that. I mean, like Call of Duty had House of Cards guy, I can't think of his name, and the other guy I can't think of his name who plays Jon Snow. Um,
I know, I can't remember. I don't know his name. I know
it's Kip something, I think, Jon Snow's actor.
who's the guy from House of Cards?
I don't know.
God,
I
he's
feel
good.
bad for not knowing it.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, he's a good actor.
Yeah, he's a very good actor. Don't mean to not remember his name, but yeah, yeah. No, voice acting is great. I mean, I've looked into I've done little snippets, and I want to get back into doing it eventually. Uh, where I would do small voices for little free-to-play games that were being made. Like someone was doing a mobile game once, and they needed someone to do Nordic magic shouts. So like shouts for elemental magic strikes for like a magician to do or whatever, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically jarble, but I came up with a few things and like looked into like Nordic words, like Swedish words for certain things, and I just like sort of modified them and came up with them and sent them off. And I guess I don't know if they ever made the game, but
it's something you can say you contributed to. Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of cool. And I'd love to do it more. It's fun. It's so cool to be in that headspace because honestly, as someone who's acted quite a lot, like on stage, voice acting is such a step above. Because like they always talk about like film acting, where you can be very specific in your emotion and your intention and your emotions and stuff like that. And stage acting, you can't be specific. You have to be big and boisterous. People have to know, like you have these giant crowds that you have to be able to reach with your movements and your voice. You have to be exaggerated, personified to the nth degree. And with voice acting, that's literally all you have is your voice. So even more than from film to stage, where people can see less detail, so they need more exaggerated detail. when all you have is the audio cue of your voice, you have to put in so much soul into making something convincing. You know, you have to be able to make what you say so full of life that if someone closed their eyes and just heard you speaking, they know what's going on in that scene. And that is an
Exactly.
immensely hard skill to be good at. Like that is crazy. So yeah, um, good on that because especially because I believe Troy Baker was is part of SAG-AFTRA, that union, and every game that doesn't have him in it is one game too many.
Basically all of them.
Yeah, he is a fantastic voice actor, and he just God, he's just really good. Um, so this next one, you might not have much to say about it, but I could have a lot, and I'm not gonna say as much as I want because holy crap, this is already gonna be a whole topic of its own eventually. But Sony has no plans to make a new PS Vita to compete with the Nintendo Switch. Essentially, just that they're not gonna make a Vita successor. In their opinion, the mobile gaming market almost doesn't exist because of phones, and that the Vita doesn't count really as a mobile device because of its ability to be docked and be a home console. It is a hybrid thing. And I really just have like sort of two-part response to this, which is just that I do agree. I don't think the Switch counts as a mobile device. Firstly, I've heard way too many people say they cannot use the Switch as a mobile device. They almost
Yeah.
exclusively play it as as a docked console. Like even Total Biscuit talks about it's like the most uncomfortable mobile device he's ever used. Like, and that's pretty bad. Like to think about. But there's some people who like say they almost exclusively use it as mobile. So it's really like it's gonna be a real flavor thing. Whatever you prefer. So yeah, I agree. The Switch doesn't count. Doesn't really prove anything about mobile gaming being a big thing now. However, I disagree with Mr. Andrew House, president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, that the mobile market isn't something to invest in. Because I feel like they're in this big state of denial where they think that the Vita failed because nobody wanted it. And what I think is a fairly popular opinion amongst a lot of people that at least like care about the Vita and look into it. The Vita failed to me because Sony didn't do it right. They failed at its marketing. They failed at presenting it. I mean, how many commercials have you ever seen about the Vita? Ever?
I've seen one that I can remember, and it was really more about you can listen to music, you can stream music from it, you can watch YouTube. It wasn't like they showed them playing like the what was it, that one Uncharted launch title they had with it, but that was about it.
Golden
And
Abyss.
Golden, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was it.
And see like that right there are like you can probably see in this article there are like little apps for music and for other things. There's a mail thing. There's like this near thing. You can tell they were trying to copy Nintendo with their like Street Pass thing. This was a console grade experience in the palm of your hands. How do you not understand that your marketing should be, hey, do you like video games? Because boy, oh boy, can this thing fucking play them. Like, just completely over your own head how to market your own product. And that
Yeah.
you just, like, so early in its life cycle, they dismissed it. and stopped supporting it. They gave it very few AAA titles, which like Golden Abyss, very good games. I mean, these aren't PS4 quality games graphically, but PS3 quality games, yeah, some of them very much so. That Uncharted game is gorgeous for a handheld game. I mean, it goes back to when like what I was talking about, and we could have a whole we will have a whole episode on this, but just the 3DS, like, so they remastered it a little bit, made it look a little bit cleaner, Dragon Quest that is, and put it on the 3DS. It still looks like a 3DS, like a game that a 3DS can run. If that game had been quote unquote remastered, like the resolution could have been up, gone up so much more. You know, they could have anti-aliased the hell out of it. They could have cleaned it up. They could have remastered it and added in some extra like levels of bloom and stuff to really make it shine. Like that game could be something else on the Vita.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. We will absolutely have an episode on the Vita and handhelds in general, but yeah, rip dreams of them taking advantage of that.
I don't think it throws out the possibility of another handheld console by Sony.
Huh?
I think I don't think it throws out the possibility of it. Maybe misinterpretation of it. I think it's just they feel no need right now. I mean, well, yeah, you're right. They don't have any support for it. You know, they aren't releasing games for it. I don't know if that doesn't mean they have any plans for it, but because I think that they see it the same way you do. I think the Vita isn't a failure. Well, it is, you know, technically,
Sort
but
of,
it
right?
has all
Like,
that potential,
yeah.
right? I think that's the way they see it. They see it. Well, we're not through with it yet, so they don't feel the need to release another console just to. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard because people aren't buying them. That's the thing. People aren't buying Vitas, and if people aren't buying them, then you don't need to make games for Vitas. I don't really know how they'll do it. Maybe they'll release like a different version of the Vita, like you know they do with the PS4 and all that. Then maybe they'll make a Vita Slim, I don't know, or something like that, or a
They
Vita
actually
Plus.
already did that. They have a
Oh,
Vita
they did.
yeah, a Vita 2000. It's a slimmer version, but like quite frankly, the other version, well, not all of the other version, but you can get an old one with an AMOLED screen that is gorgeous. And I don't really understand the thinner. Like maybe it's more comfortable to somebody, but again, something that I just worry about with the Switch when I finally get one and get my hands on it, I don't like the idea of a tablet. Um, it looks so much thinner and therefore so much less comfortable than what that Wii U tablet was. Because that Wii U tablet was actually fairly comfortable, because it was chunky. Like,
Mhm.
and this is a problem I have with phones, and like even with the God, like that's why I hate the iPhones. Like when you see that camera bump, all I can think is, man, imagine if you made it just a little bit thicker and you could have like twice as much battery life and no camera bump. Holy shit. And it would be like, oh my God, it's just, I could go on we could have a whole podcast just on that shit.
About phones, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just like this idea that you need this thin thing, like, oh my God. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just going to be a whole thing of it gets smaller and smaller, then bigger, then bigger, then bigger, and now
yeah,
it's going to be thinner and thinner, and then that's kind of silly how these phone companies are just vying for something to change up the game.
yeah,
Now it's just titles and gimmicks and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like, although I will admit the new Galaxy, was it S8 or something like that? The
I
one
think
the
so.
Edge or something like that. The one where
Yeah.
it's like the bevel goes all the way to the side of the phone. Like there's no what are they called? The little frame around the screen. I forget what it's called, but it
Bezel.
looks really beautiful. Bezel. There we go. Um, Bezel.
Yeah,
That clinches
it
me a
does look
bit.
good. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, we will have a thing about that eventually. But so this next one, back to Fortnite. their battle royale spin-off. So the article specifically is about them getting up to 1 million players. Um, but there's kind of two pieces of news that go with this that I want to talk about. This is more about that, like, and I mean, like, they're saying, like, almost lookout player unknown battlegrounds because Fortnite's battle royale is doing really well. And I will admit, like, it looks really high quality. Kudos to Epic Games for this. Um, they like I've watched some gameplay of it and it looks really good. It's actually like making me want to buy Fortnite, even though I want to buy Fortnite. I just don't want to buy
Yeah,
as
I
an
want to get Fortnite
early
as well.
access. I just don't want to buy as an early access game with this weird, terrible model they have going on. But with this, it looks so much more intriguing for me to actually buy in early. Um, as a game that we have played in the alpha, we know Fortnite's a great game. It's just when they do certain things a certain way, it's like ugh. But then this entices me again. So, um, yeah, it's very interesting. It's great that it's doing so well. I mean, again, like you were saying earlier with the competition aspect, this is all it is. More competition to Battlegrounds is great because Battlegrounds is great, and I think more people should play it.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be toppled
Um,
anytime soon, but were there rumors about a battle royale game, Dite, the Frostbite engine or something like that?
Really, I heard a lot of people talking about wanting it, but I didn't know there was actually rumors about it. Oh my god, that would be so good. There were a lot of people thinking that the gosh, what was it? Tom Clancy's the Ghost Recon Wildlands was going to get that, and honestly, that oh my god, that engine is gorgeous. That game is fantastically gorgeous. Seeing a battle royale in that game would be great, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything's toppling Battlegrounds anytime soon. I think they got in just early enough, were good enough of a game, and just quite frankly are doing everything, or mostly everything, right to like they deserve their success. I mean, it is still baffling that they are so successful, but they absolutely deserve it, and it is awesome. And it is awesome to see that Fortnite's battle royale is so good, and that it is being so successful as well. I mean, racks up to 1 million players on a
Wow.
and this is the battle royale spinoff. This is a game mode within a game. You know, I mean, how many copies did this game mode sell them? I really want to see those numbers because that is awesome. Yeah, because like PUBG is 1.4 million concurrent players. Um, and Epic Games just basically what they were announcing is that they had 1 million players that took part in the Battle Royale on launch day. So their concurrent players probably dropped. But they probably still have a very significant chunk. And to think that enough people like it, like I've been hearing, I mean, it's great. This is a genre that I am so okay with. A bunch of people jumping on the bandwagon because
Yeah, better that than survival games like or Rust
yeah,
clones,
yeah.
which we'll
Oh
talk
man,
about as well. So yeah.
yeah. But yeah, all good news. I guess not good news is that apparently Bluehole Interactive, who made PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, doesn't think Mr. PlayerUnknown himself doesn't think that Fortnite's Battle Royale was done in good taste. Oh, and there are not necessarily threats of suing, but that they're looking into it because apparently the games are too similar. Um, Now I don't know from a legal standpoint what point a game is too similar and all that, so I can't really speak to that. But I will say that looking at it, I think it's different enough. And maybe this is a good sign for Battlegrounds to start focusing on their first person mode as their main mode, because God, Why is it not? Why is it not? Like honestly, I
Exactly.
just the
It's the only
third
way to play.
it really is. And like I know there's other people that have different opinions, but when it comes to like I haven't seen anyone with that opinion honestly. I know they exist. I don't know where they are. Like I have not heard a single person when it comes to like YouTube personalities or anyone that I've heard that has played the game who has thought the third person is the way to go. It really just it's a whole new game and in my opinion a whole better game when it is first person.
Mm,
Uh, but
much
yeah,
less BS, which is welcome.
yeah. So this next one, so the SNES Mini uses the same hardware as the NES Mini or the NES Classic or whatever they're called. Um, Frankly, not surprised. Something that is very interesting is when they were making the NES Mini, the Nintendo Classic, they molded the motherboard and like the shape of all like the internals to fit the form factor of the NES Mini. However, the SNES Mini literally uses the same board, so it's not designed for this custom for this form factor. Um, Now, again, I don't find this very surprising that they're using the exact same hardware. This is a tiny little machine that is meant to run ROMs. Like from NES to SNES, why would you make a machine that could run one but not the other? You know, like it really doesn't make any sense. Like they're not building Super Nintendos; they're building little Raspberry Pis essentially that run Super Nintendo emulators. Like that's all it
Which
is.
I want to make. Those are pretty badass.
Huh?
Yeah. I want to make one of those. Those are pretty badass.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I still want to make an arcade cabinet. I want to do
yeah.
that. That'd be awesome.
We could totally do that. That'd be a great project one day.
Dude,
But
yeah, dude, I'd still be into that.
yeah,
You know, they have a dedicated AMD card for that to run like on a
yeah.
what
So
are
it's
they
it's built for the
monitors?
conditions. Yeah, CRTs.
Yeah, CRTs, and they have that somewhat pin connector. It's awesome. Anyway, back to the
Yeah. No, yeah,
SNES.
I've seen those. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Like I love
Yeah,
watching people build those. It'd be so great to do it one day. But yeah, so really like again, I'm not surprised at all. I don't think anyone's really surprised when they think about it too much. Um what is pissing people off though is that they're using all this hardware for these games for this little mini console that's exactly the same as the NES. And people are wondering, well, hold up a second. You told us there wasn't like you couldn't make enough NESs. So where is this coming from? You know, where's all this same
yeah.
hardware? If you had to like start a whole new process for the SNES, which like this has been a whole thing, and like the whole like arbitrary limitations on products made and stuff like that, and like all the pre-ordering BS that came with the NES. And I'm of two minds. Like people say like, oh, Nintendo hates money, and on some level I think they do because they're doing really stupid things to like when you make too little of a product, you sell less of them. You know, you make if you make 100 instead of 1,000, you could only possibly sell 100 instead of 1,000 of them. You know,
Mhm.
and that's what they're doing to themselves. They're hurting themselves
Yeah,
because
they
I get
definitely do make some odd decisions. Like,
yeah, like I get what they're doing. They're doing the whole like oh like the McRib like it's limited it goes away or like what is near and dear to my heart the Buffalo Ranch chicken strip sandwich at Whataburger,
oh, I
which
tried that. It was disgusting.
you
I
didn't
did
like
not
it.
like that. No, it was disgusting.
Oh my god,
I
I
was like,
loved
how
it.
did anybody like this?
I love it.
Oh,
You got to do what I do. Get a large patty on it.
uh, You can still get it, by the way. You just have to ask honey
They
barbecue chicken strip with the buffalo
they
and
don't
ranch on
have
the side.
buffalo sauce anymore. I
The
asked.
one, oh, the one here in Kingsville does. I don't know. Might get your own.
Damn.
I imagine they have their own brand of buffalo
Yeah,
sauce.
it's a very
Uh,
specific sauce. But anyways, I've always disagreed with this. I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. Quite frankly, I don't like. Do people, and I'm sure they do, but do people really care that a burger is limited? Like, I would order that every time I went to Whataburger year round. I promise you, I will not burn out on this burger because I may burn out on Whataburger and not go to you as much, but I will not burn on this burger. That will be the burger. Because you know what I do right now? I get a patty melt every single time because that is
yeah,
the only other sandwich I want.
see,
Because
people, we're masters. We link it all back to burnout. There you go. Burnout. Burger
we,
burnout.
we will bring everything to the final conclusion. But yeah, like this idea that like this I don't get it. And the mentality differs when it comes to hardware. I understand that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The reason why they do it for fast food is it's just like they don't want it to stagnate, so they have these deals and these special burgers. It's like an
Yeah,
economical thing.
I
But
know it's but it's like that idea, right? Like people are like, "Oh man, it's here. I have to get it." But it's like I will buy that every fucking day of the year that I go.
yeah, it's just they don't understand that people actually care if it's gone. You know.
Yeah, it's a
Or,
disconnection with their customer base, but
yeah.
um yeah, and I think the same thing applies here. I get the idea of it, like, ooh, it's limited, so let's and of course Reggie Fils-Aimé comes out with his shit-eating grin and is like, oh, we produce so many. In fact, we overproduce. Like they said that with the Switch, even though Switch had all these problems, we overproduce and just didn't estimate. And it's like, no, dude, you want people to struggle for this. But the thing is, you must really hate money because you know what happens is people buy these things up and sell them on eBay for like three times inflation, and you don't get any of that money. That person just made, like, if this thing is $60, that person sells it for $400. There's $340 that you didn't make because he did. And if you had just made more of them, and if you want to talk about like, oh, we couldn't produce enough, don't release it. These are 20 and 30-year old games. Don't release it. People can wait for games that have been out for decades at this point.
Yeah.
Nobody is like, man, I really need this right this moment. Like if they delay this, I'm gonna be so pissed. Like, no, these
They
games,
already played it. Chances
yeah,
are, yeah. They
yeah,
just
like
want to play it again.
the people who are interested in this product played these games when they were children. Like not all of them obviously, but like a lot of them. And it's just like you're like, what the fuck are you doing, Nintendo? Quite frankly, I don't give like I attribute Nintendo very closely to Apple, where I think they are a company that is capable of good things, doesn't do them almost ever, and has a fan base that will defend them till they die.
Yeah.
Just kind of my opinion on it. But yeah, I don't know. None of this is very surprising for me. It is Nintendo. Yeah, I don't know. It is something else.
Yeah.
But we can move on. So this next one, Red Dead 2, Redemption's 2's new trailer.
Which I have not watched.
No, you
So
didn't. Oh, okay, go ahead and watch it right now. I won't watch it, but I'll listen to you. Just give me reactions, and we'll talk about it.
God, it looks gorgeous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, you know what? We can. Can I? Thank you. Play it a little bit.
Oh, it's gonna be so awesome.
You got some money for me, boy? I seen your name in our
Oh, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah. And really,
A wanted man, Mr. Morgan.
there's not a whole lot that, like, I feel like we can necessarily talk about this. Like, it's just, it's just kind of what it is. I mean, like, it's exciting. So the news of it, just we know it's a prequel. We know that it deals with the gang that John Marston was in prior to Red Dead.
This place.
I don't think it's been confirmed exactly when and where John Marston comes into this, but I think it has been confirmed that he does come into it.
The only one of these fools that I trust.
Awesome, awesome. You know, it's kind of funny. They're talking how it was probably gonna be a prequel, like long before Red Dead 2 was even announced. And yeah, it was a prequel. You know, they were right on. I mean, how much longer? The thing is that they did it like what, in like 1910 was the first one or something like that. And
yeah,
it was like right at the right before World War One. Yeah, so they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. You know, they couldn't have really done much more of the Wild West maybe, but yeah, I think a prequel was kind of guaranteed. But like, and that means that I was like, one thing I was like, well, there's no bow and arrow in this game, but if it's a prequel when Native Americans are a lot more prolific, that probably means we'll be able to use a bow, and it looks like we will.
yeah,
So
yeah, he has a bow.
I was like, fuck yeah, dude, I want to
Confirmed
use
for
a
a
bow so
bow.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, yeah, it's very exciting. Red Dead's awesome game.
Oh God, the first one was
One
amazing.
of the rumors that has been cycling around is that it will take place at least partially. A part of it will be Nude Bordeaux from LA Noir. It will be that area, at least part of it, and from that swampy.
What was that?
Like, so the area that LA Noir takes place in,
Uh-huh.
or was that it? Or am I thinking of the wrong thing? New Bordeaux. It's like a certain area. I'm kind of fuzzy on it, but the rumor is that like part of this game is going to take place in New Bordeaux pre the game it normally is in, and that swampy area is like everyone's like flaring like it's there, so who knows. Kind of cool, but yeah, it's gonna be very exciting. It's going to be a great game, I'm sure. Let's just hope that Rockstar and Take-Two's recent business model, and do not be fooled that Rockstar and Take-Two are different people. They are the same entity, essentially. Yeah, their recent business models have been kind of crappy, and hopefully they can kind of adjust that before this game comes out, you know? But we still have a while. Sometime next year, spring next year, I think they call for it. So, yeah, excited.
Oh yeah.
It'll be great, I'm sure.
Oh my God, I'm gonna like. I wonder where I'll be at in my life. Be over there in Austin.
Playing it all the time.
Yeah. Report me missing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my work will. Everybody.
Yeah.
No. But yeah. Man,
Yeah.
that's freaking awesome. Oh, I love the first Red Dead Redemption. That's the only game I almost platinumed, but the online achievements I would have platinumed it. Did everything else in that game. Got 100% completion, everything. Undead Nightmare, I think I got 100% completion. I think I did. Not sure. I think I did. Pretty sure I did.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time playing that game.
All right. Well, and the last story, definitely burning through time here.
Yeah.
We'll try and speed things up as we go into the next thing. The last story is Bethesda says fan criticisms won't define what we do. And we plan to have a topic on Bethesda, so we will really flesh how we see them and their games and their practices and our opinions of it in a later time. But basically, to sort of sum up this, there's been a lot of backlash as they've reintroduced what is paid mods as the creator program or something like that. Creation cave? I don't know. Some bullshit excuse to name paid mods. And they try not calling it paid mods because that's like a buzzword for people. But that's all it is. Quite frankly, it's paid mods. And to be fair, I want to be clear. I'm not against paid mods. I think the people who make some of these mods definitely deserve. Like, some of these mods are incredible. They're basically making a new game. And some of them, like the effort put into them is astounding. And these people absolutely deserve to be paid for what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the area is gray for me as to how much Bethesda deserves to capitalize on that. I have already bought your game. Why should I pay for what someone else creates? Like,
yeah,
I've already paid for your part of the work. And the person who made the mod, quite frankly, already paid for it too. Like,
yeah,
in my mind, me buying the game and them buying the game is us buying the license for you to just back off at this point.
and you know what? It's probably just aesthetic and like weapon mods, right? It's probably not the ones that fix the bugs.
It's all like it's all mods, really. They're trying to congregate all mods into this. Yeah. Aesthetic ones that add like completely new campaigns and stuff like that, like worlds that don't even exist. And I understand it to a degree. Like, a lot of the things they talk about is like being able to sit down with the modders and like maybe find modders that do good content and be like, hey, do you want to be in partnership with us? And we'll like give you some more resources to work with and stuff like that. That could be a good thing. That could be a lucrative thing. But they're doing it in a way that I don't think really actually works for that idea. And just, it's clear that nobody wants it. So anyways, there's a lot of backlash going on about this. But there, Pete, was it Pete Hines? I don't remember the dudes. Yeah, Pete Hines, PR and marketing guy. Pete Hines talked to Games Radar, and when asked, when talking about it, he says we're aware of it being the the backlash and the outrage. And he says, but we're not going to let it define what we do. Ultimately, we're going to try to do things that we think are the best for the games that we're making, because that's honestly all I can really control. I went to Todd Hauer, of course, maker of Skyrim and a bunch of other games over there, a couple of E3s ago, and said, everybody's going to ask us about the Elder Scrolls 6. You have to help me. You have to help me come out and say what's the studio's path is, and when the Elder Scrolls 6 is coming, to try and manage expectations. He goes on to say, like, oh, we're not a vending machine that you can just like pop out games, like. And there was talk about sort of just that, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. The people, like, we hear you, but we still have our path. And this is another thing where I'm like twofold on it, because I do agree that like you really need to be careful. Like, again, this is one of those thin lines to tread. As a developer, you need to be very careful what part of your community you actually like. When you should listen to your community, there is no doubt about that. But what parts you take action on is something that should take heavy consideration. Because like we've talked about before with Battlefield, like, in my opinion, for a long time in Battlefield 3, they took some and they ended up fixing it because it was horrible. but the community was crying about a lot of things. They changed it, and it ruined the game.
Yeah, it ruined the balance. That was very, very disappointing for me,
And this,
especially since
yeah,
I played since launch.
yeah, and it happens a lot, and it's like it's hard to blame a developer necessarily because what are you gonna do? The people who play your game are saying that they don't like something. You want them to like it, so you're gonna change it to make them like it. But you have to be very careful because you can, you know, there's a point where you are the developer and you have to make decisions for your games. Again, it comes to the whole like idea of you tell me what this game is supposed to be. Like this asshole shouting on the internet, he's never made a video game before. Why do you think he knows what's absolutely best? He has an idea. If he has a grievance about why your game isn't fun to him, that's something to take into account because that's important. But that doesn't mean he knows how to make your game better than you do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that being said, like there's still a part where, and I mean, this is Bethesda, so I don't really consider it that. Bethesda's never been like, oh, we're, they've never had that problem. They've only ever had the problem of not listening to people or doing things
Yeah.
completely against their interest. So that's important, but that's not relevant here. This is Bethesda, and in my opinion, they do a lot of things against consumer interest. Again, they're a company. They want your money. They don't care about you. They just happen to make video games that you like. And, oh, man. It's funny. There was a thing where they were talking about, like, when with that Elder Scrolls 6 thing, there was a part where he was talking about people are always asking for, like, people want the next Elder Scrolls because they want the next game that they, the game that they enjoy. It's like, where do they come that? And it's like, and he talks about like, well, maybe studios want to take different directions and stuff like that. And like, and to the point, to some point, he talks about like Horizon and stuff like that. And you know what? That's
That's a valid point.
that's very fair. That studio wasn't making anything like Horizon before Horizon. They were making a first-person shooter, and they were better off changing. So I wholeheartedly understand that argument, but that falls short when you're also the person who is still releasing Skyrim. You're talking about you want to move on to things. What version of Skyrim are we on now? Like, it's on everything but mobile phones.
Yeah.
The Switch version is like, that game is 6 years old, and you're still releasing it for the first time.
And it probably looks about as bad as it did on PS3 when it first launched.
Oh boy, yeah. But yeah, like, and that's not to say the game doesn't belong on more platforms for people to play. Every game should be on every platform it's capable of being on, because that's more options for people. Like, it's a problem that every PS2, PS3, and PS1 game isn't on the PS4. That is a problem. Because if everyone had that option to go back and play those games, because there are some games that absolutely deserve to be played from those eras, like, they should be able to do that. So yeah, it's absolutely a problem when that's not the case. But like, don't BS us when like and say like, oh, we just want to look towards new things, when it's like, yeah, but you still got the same thing you've been doing. Skyrim's 6 years old. 6 years old, and you're still treating it like the first of its kind every time it comes out. Oh, you know what? Back to the Dragon Quest thing, just because I'm harping on Bethesda. So you know how I said when monsters see you, they'll charge at you, the little mobs, and then you'll engage in a battle if they touch you.
Yeah.
So when you become high enough level, like there's a certain level for each mob that at some in each area, that at some point when you're powerful enough, if they see you, before, like when you get close enough, they will run away, which is something Skyrim don't know how to do, because you can be the most powerful being on Earth, absorbing dragon souls left and right, and some peasant bandit will be like, "Oh, I think I can steal from him," and come and fight you like he has a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, my spiel. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
It's just Bethesda's.
Just
We'll talk
Bethesda.
about that, like you said. Yeah, they're Bethesda.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a future episode. Because I've
Yeah.
recently had a pretty long stint of playing Fallout 4. You know, and I saw the good and the usual Bethesda stuff and the bad Bethesda stuff. It's all the same. If you, I'm not saying Fallout 4 is a great game. I love Fallout in general. I haven't played the original ones a whole lot, but I love Fallout 3. I love New Vegas. Fallout 4 is great. I put in about 300 hours in about maybe like 3 months. So, I played it a lot. I would be playing it now if it actually ran, but something messed up. Yeah, we'll talk about Bethesda some more.
Yeah, for sure.
Future.
Well, that was all our news stuff. So we'll quickly get into game releases, and then we'll wrap things up because we have been running for a while. Which, hey, like honestly, longer is better. I would rather be able to dial back something if we feel like this is too long. And again, absolutely let us know down in the comments if you're watching the YouTube VOD or just anywhere. I will be putting this on the Facebook page as well. So let me know there if you think this is too long. And any notes you have. Absolutely, constructive criticism is very welcome. But yeah, I'd rather have a longer show that we have to dial back a bit and refine than something that's too short and we're like, shit, how do we fill this out? So
You just dead silence. Yeah.
yeah, we're on
much
the right
prefer
track. I
longer.
think we're on the right track. So yeah, game releases. We're gonna be trying to do this podcast at least every 2 weeks. At first, so we'll have the past 2 weeks. But for now, we're gonna do the month of September to sort of just cover all our bases. And you know what? There's some uninteresting ones in here, so we'll mention them, but we won't really need to talk about them at all. And speaking of uninteresting, on the 5th, Knack 2. Yeah, Knack was a launch game for the PS4. Very unimaginative. Interestingly, that like it looked like a kiddie game, but apparently it was like actually kind of dark at some times. And apparently Knack 2 gets like the same thing where it's really dark, but fairly uninteresting. You could tell they were trying to make a mascot game, but they made like a character who is literally just a jarble of junk. Like the most when you talk about iconic figures, there is not like a theory, but a method that is their silhouette has to be recognizable. There's nothing recognizable about the silhouette of a jagged pile of junk.
Yeah.
You could not show me that silhouette and be like, "Oh man, that's Knack. That is that old Knack there." You show me a silhouette of Sora, and I'm like, "Dude, that's Sora." Any Disney character,
Exactly.
the silhouette,
Exactly.
I could pick it out. But yeah, so fairly innocuous, uninteresting. Destiny 2. This is for PS4 and Xbox One. It will be coming out on PC soon, if it's not already. I don't know if it is already. Anyways,
Let's find out.
yeah, we tried the beta. It was nice, but it was kind of a crappy beta. Like if you were trying to get first,
I wasn't very impressed.
yeah. However, I've heard good things about it. I'd be interested in try it. Maybe after some DLC releases, we'll get it and we'll play it.
It's definitely pretty.
Yeah,
pretty.
and it being on
Just
PC
like to say that.
is a reason to play for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, So NASCAR Heat 2, nobody cares. Pro Evolution Soccer 2018, nobody cares. I mean, somebody cares, but we don't, so we're just skipping over it. Divinity Original Sin 2 on PC, September 14th. We were talking about this earlier. Really, oh my god, everything I've been seeing about this game has been getting me so hyped.
I really want to play it.
Again, this like turn-based strategy RPG game, something I thought I lost taste for, but all these games are
And
kind
it's
of
co-op.
Is it co-op?
Yeah, it is.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. Wow, we have to get this game.
I was gonna say we should get it for that. I was gonna tell you that earlier.
Wow, yeah.
For a long time ago, actually.
I will just say, like, we'll play this and we will see how we like it, and I'm sure it will be like, I am just anticipating this will be a topic in its own one day, on this show. I will just say though that like from everything I've seen, this is kind of my bread and butter of what an RPG game should be. Who you are literally affects the game. I don't know if you've like looked into it this much, but the class you choose will change the way people treat you in the game. Like
I haven't looked into a whole lot.
Not the class, but the race. So like,
yeah,
if you're the cat or the lizard person, I don't know if there's like I don't want to say Khajiit because it's not a Khajiit, but I think there's a cat person. There's a lizard person though. So there's a race of lizard people, and if you're a lizard person, you will be treated better by lizard people than if you were anything else, because they're like, oh, you're us. Who you are affects the way the game not only plays mechanically, but like the way the story works mechanically. I mean, it's still mechanically because there's a very deep like dialogue system of like actual fleshed out things to choose from. Like it's so fascinating. I cannot wait to play this game. It looks great.
Yeah.
What, I don't know what you have to say, but
I was gonna say try being the necromancer or the licher. That'd be pretty hard.
Or the skeleton, like so.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. The skeleton is so cool, because like where normal characters healing spells would heal you, the like anti-healing or darkness or whatever it is spells heal you, and healing spells hurt you. You know, like so cool. We'll get into it, and it will probably be a whole thing. So, Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. I'm not sure if you were aware of this. This is a solo release game.
Really?
It's not a DLC, I think. Yeah, I just barely heard about it like the other day, and I was like, I had no idea there was another Dishonored game coming out.
I heard about it, but I didn't know it was standalone.
I don't know that for sure. I think it is. So don't quote me on it necessarily, but I think it is, and it just weirded me out. But it was, interesting. I need to play Dishonored 1. I played it a little bit at your place, but like I need to actually play it, and then
great
Dishonored
game.
2.
Yeah. Dishonored 2, so disappointed. It was so buggy on launch from what I heard. I just didn't want to buy it.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough money to waste on a game that wouldn't run, or just I wouldn't enjoy it because of the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But now, if it's ironed out, I'll totally get it because I loved the first one. It was an awesome game. Its lore didn't hit home. I can tell. At least I think that's what they were hoping.
Yeah.
It's a good universe. It's interesting. The art style, the aesthetic is awesome. It's pretty unique. It looks like a pastel painting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or oil painting. It's awesome. They typically, even if it is DLC, they have pretty good DLC. At least the first one, they had pretty good DLC.
Yeah, I mean it probably is because Dishonored 2 just came out, so why wouldn't it be? But I don't know. I feel like I remember hearing something about it being standalone, but again, don't quote me. It might not be. So yeah, but good stuff. NBA Live and NHL 18. Nobody cares. Metroid Samus Returns for 3DS. I have heard kind of all around things. I mean, it really depends on whether you're a Metroid fan. Personally, I'm not. I guess from that era, I'm more of a Castlevania. I love Samus. Samus as a character is one of the more liked IPs. But the Metroid games are great. I enjoyed them. It's just I don't care that much for them. There are some really good titles, and they're really important, I think. But yeah, it's a remake of one of the games. I don't remember exactly. I think maybe two, but I can't remember exactly. So interesting. Marvel versus Capcom Infinite, fighting game. I haven't really been into the Marvel vs. Capcom series in a long
Yeah, me
time,
neither.
so it's cool. I'm sure it's good. They make good games. NBA 2K18, nah. Uh, Pokemon Gold and Silver. These are re-releases of Gold and Silver on the 3DS. If you're into Pokemon, I would. I mean, if you played those games and liked them and want to play them again, or you like Pokemon in general, haven't played them, go play them. I'm sure they're great if you're into that. Pokken Tournament Deluxe for the Switch. I have so little understanding of this game. I think it's a fighting Pokemon game.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It actually looks pretty interesting. We should, if we ever get a Switch, we should play it.
Yeah. Well, I will be getting that Super Mario Odyssey Switch, so
Cool.
yeah, well, when you get up here, we'll be able to play some party games and see all that. Project Cars 2. I think this is awesome. Project Cars 1, like, probably the best racing game I ever played. That being said, I need a racing wheel. I just need a racing setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. The game is so good. It is gorgeous. It's great, but it is a little touchy with a gamepad. And I've just looked into it so much that I know the experience is just like it's incomparable to when you use a wheel versus when you use a gamepad or even mouse keyboard or whatever. But yeah, they have good for these guys. Is it super? I can't remember. It's like Super Massive or Super Giant. One of the either Super Massive Games made that PS4 horror game that I can't think of the name of. Very good game. Doesn't really matter right now. I will think of it later. Super Giant Games. No, Super Giant Games made. Oh my God, Transistor.
Yeah.
Well, crap. I don't remember who. It's not Behemoth.
Super Giant made Transistor, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Whoever made this, I'm sorry, developer. The people who made Project Cars 1 is making this. Are good on them. I'm glad that it did so well. The market really needed a racing sim of this quality. And I was looking into the development of this one a bit, and they have like their own Porsche guy, like literally a guy who comes in and sits in a rig and tells them like your Porsche doesn't feel right or it feels good. So yeah, that's some dedication just to get a couple cars in there. So yeah, that's good. Blue Reflection. I actually have no idea what this is. It looks like a role-playing video game developed by Gust Company Limited, Koei Tecmo. If it's Koei Tecmo, it's probably Anime Chicks.
Oh yeah, it is. Look up images, image results.
But it's 3D, so it's an RPG. I was thinking at first it was a visual novel, which it probably
Me too. That's what I think.
Probably has some level of it because there's not a whole lot of screenshots showing anything. But it looks like there's some combat. So yeah, it's Koei Tecmo game. You like anime boobies, you like Koei Tecmo. Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony. So this is a game coming out on Vita, so yes, I will get it. Danganronpa, not a series that I was familiar with until maybe a year and a half ago. I've never played one yet, but from my knowledge, they are just super solid. Excuse me, super solid JRPGs, and this one is in the style of like it's almost a Saw situation. Like you have a bunch of students like in this house or something, and basically you have to get
Mhm.
away with killing people and finding out who's killing who and stuff like that. I don't know exactly, but it sounds really good and it looks really good and it gets general high praise all around. So I'm sure it's great, and I will check it out eventually. Um, you know what? Let's just hammer out. We'll come back. FIFA 18, Gundam versus, and Total War Warhammer 2. Total War Warhammer 2, I'm sure, is great to somebody that really cares about it. The other two, I mean, FIFA is always a big deal. Gundam, who knows if anyone cares about that. But yeah, so we'll come back and talk about Ruiner.
Ruiner looks pretty awesome.
It does.
It's if you have not seen the artwork they released for it on their website, I recommend you do because it's a partially like interactive, partially animated long piece of artwork done in comic book style. It's really badass. It really hammers home that cyberpunk feeling. And in case you didn't know already, this is a cyberpunk game, sort of a hack and slash cyberpunk game
Yeah.
set in a dystopian universe, narrative driven.
A little
Has
isometric.
awesome, yeah.
Hack and
It's sort of
slash
top
style.
down, yeah,
Yeah.
and it has a lot of cyberpunk elements. Really awesome, really gritty, awesome art style. Haven't played it yet, but whenever I have some money, I'll buy it and play it.
Yeah.
Um, really awesome. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. It looks good. I mean, and it seems like from everything I've seen, anyone who would be interested in this game thinks it's a good deal. So, yeah, I'm totally interested in trying it. It looks quality. It looks great. That oppressive cyberpunk, like, oh, it's just something about that aesthetic is great. Um, yeah, and then Cuphead on Xbox One and PC. I am interested in to play this game. There was some iffiness about it. I mean, it's been delayed numerous
Oh yeah,
times. So
yeah. I remember it being at like what was it, PAX like several years ago or something like that.
yeah. So it's finally out, which is great. General consensus seems to be fairly warm on it. It is a pretty punishing, difficult platformer and sort of boss rush game with platforming levels. So it's like a rush game with platforming levels, and the platforming levels serve as ways to get coins that can buy you, I guess, upgrades and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, and that's all good and well. Like it looks like a very solid game. Everyone seems to think that mechanically it is super sound, which is great. But the big thing about this game is that the style is this gorgeous hand drawn looking animation
It is
that
hand
it
drawn, actually. That's how
yeah, oh
they
yeah, yeah.
animated
Well, I
it.
mean, I
Yeah,
guess it has to be if it looks like that
yeah.
spot on, but it is this hand drawn
Cell
vintage as hell
animation, kind of.
cartoons, like early
Mm.
cartoons, Betty Boop, like
Tom
before.
and Jerry,
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of.
The really vintage Betty Boop and like the wolf and the super vintage cartoon style of animation that is just it's just a joy to look at with the slight film grain and filter over it. It is a gorgeous game that just with the jazzy music like
Yeah, which I love that.
yeah, like I'm a sucker for period piece movies. When someone can nail a period piece game like in that aesthetic feeling, it's just perfect. So I will definitely be trying out Cuphead. It is also co-op, though a lot less intriguing in my opinion. It'll just be interesting to see it since I've actually heard that the co-op kind of ruins the experience because um, well, it increases the difficulty, and adding another person on the screen as well as having more enemies on the screen just kind of makes it a bit of a cluster. So, a bit upsetting there, but like on its own, seems like a super great game. Yeah. Well, I guess that is it. Hey guys, so I just want to say if you made it all the way through this thing, thank you so much. It means so much that you actually sat through 3 hours of us talking. That being said, even if you just watched a little bit, that's totally awesome too, and thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed making it so much, and it was so much fun. So we will definitely be doing more and more of this. Episode 2 is already on the way, so if you're watching this, expect it soon. If you want to keep up with us more and see when those episodes come out, you can like us on Facebook as well as subscribe to us on YouTube. That's where our main platforms where we'll be broadcasting it is at. We are working on getting on podcast platforms, but that's kind of a process, and it will be happening as soon as possible. So I will let y'all know when that all will happen. But links will be provided below. Once again, I want to say thank you to Carbohydro M for his amazing song "Winner of Whistlers." Absolutely fantastic. If you want to check that out, I will put links to that down below. And just, yeah, thank you for letting us use that. And that's it. Thank you guys so much. We will catch you in the next one, and I will lead you out with one of my favorite songs ever, Super Mario World's ending theme as performed by Tom Breyer. See you guys.